College basketball top of mind because we're kind of inching closer and closer to that spot where we're going to start covering a little bit more. The Utes still looking for their first conference win. The Utah women continue to play well. They got a loss this week. BYU basketball with a big one coming up against Texas Tech on the road, probably their stiffest test, and Utah State off to a great, great start. So we'll talk some college basketball on the show today. We'll talk some NBA on the show today as the trade deadline is inching closer and closer and closer. The Utah Jazz were unserious about competing again last night. They got smoked by the Dallas Mavericks. They're going to take on that same Maverick team coming up tomorrow. Then they'll have San Antonio on Monday. And then they're back at home for, I think it's a 5 or 6 game homestand, which, doesn't really matter if it's home or away. The Jazz aren't serious about competing. 144-122. The Jazz have lost 3 of 4, and as of now, they're sitting at number 6 in the lottery standings, which is applicable because if it is a draft pick that's out of the bottom 8, it goes to the defending champs, Oklahoma City. But a lot of conversation surrounding the trade deadline and what the Jazz may or may not do. You like Jonathan Kuminga? He's available. Jonathan Kuminga has demanded a trade from the Warriors because Steve Kerr doesn't play him. So he wants to go to a place that actually plays him. The transfer portal is closing today in the world of college football. Since you and I last spoke, nothing official as it pertains to Utah adding or losing anybody else. So I think it's safe to say that right now we can kind of look at this roster and then try to understand what sort of hand we've been dealt prior to, we'll get spring ball, then obviously come fall. But for the most part, this is going to be the roster for both Utah and BYU. So we'll do some college football on the show today. Reminder, you can always not tweet. It's always a choice. Busy Friday show. Dave McMenamin is going to be our first guest. Right out of the gates to do some NBA. The Lakers lost to the Hornets last night, and a lot of conversation about what's next for them. We'll get to some trade deadline stuff with Dave, all the latest NBA storylines. We're going to bring in Sean Mooney today, our buddy Sean Mooney, to talk some running Utes. The color analyst on our broadcast today will join us. Going to preview the divisional games. You're going to want to stay tuned for this. If you're going to play a little daily fantasy or if you want to look at potentially some game lines or some prop bets, Sam Monson will stop by from Pro Football Focus. Always enjoy Sam's time. And then a busy, busy week in the world of professional golf. Brooks Koepka is coming back to the PGA Tour. Bryson DeChambeau apparently is asking for $500 million to stay at LIV. DJ is going to stay. Cam Smith is going to stay. John Rahm is going to stay. But there are a couple of other rumors out there that some of the golfers could try to come back to the PGA Tour after spending a couple of seasons getting rich on the LIV Golf Tour. So Paul Pugmire will stop by today as well. Dave McMenamin, we've got Sam Monson, Sean Mooney, Paul Pugmire. We're out to a couple of other college football guests for the latest on the Utes and the Cougars, and, of course, previewing the national championship game coming up on Monday night. Me, Spence Checketts. Hello, how are you? Happy Friday to all of you, the great listeners, and that guy, Porter Larson. Divisional round, NFL playoffs. Feels like mostly consensus that people believe this is the best weekend of the NFL playoffs. Oftentimes I lean towards the wild card round only because of this. There are just more games.
Right.
But what is your favorite weekend of NFL playoff football?
I gotta go with conference title week. For some reason, it gives you enough football. Both conferences are represented on that weekend. Super Bowl Sunday to me is obviously a spectacle, but it's as much about the spectacle as it is the football. So that gets to be a little tiring sometimes. I got to go with conference title week. Now I know wild card week, divisional rounds, you just get back-to-back games, but I like to dial into the 4 best teams, the 2 best teams on each side of the aisle meeting for a spot in the Super Bowl. To me is probably my favorite watching experience of the NFL season.
There you go. So hopefully we're going to have 4 good games. We had a grip. Like every game was awesome last week, maybe outside of the Patriots and the Chargers game. So we'll get to some previews, big-time divisional round matchup, spreads for all 4 games as well. Get you ready for a great weekend ahead in the NFL. Our first guest will be an NBA guest. Dave McMenamin stops by. But before we get to Dave on a Friday afternoon, courtesy of our good friends, your good friends too at Prize Picks. It's time now for your opening tip.
Welcome to The Drive with Spence Checketts on Utah's #1 sports talk. Now into the studios of ESPN 700 to set the scene for the show. The opening tip of the drive is brought to you by Prize Picks. Use the code ESPN 700 with Prize Picks.
All right, new year, new you. Okay, so here's the deal. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend and elite hoop action almost every single night, the action never stops, and Prize Picks lets you take control. A couple of new features, namely early payouts. This is a great one. I used it this week to make some money. If your player gets off to a hot start, you now have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. You can find your community on Prize Picks with a new social feeds feature. You can share Prize Picks with your friends, copy lineups from winners with a single click. You can copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tail or fade our picks in just one click. So, good news. If you have not been able to take advantage of their free money yet, you're about to make some money this weekend. I'm going to tell you why. So, here's what you do. Step number one is you download the Prize Picks app today. That's free. Then you use the promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Promo code ESPN700 to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup, because on Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Here's why you're going to win money this weekend. Max discount, Prize Picks app. It's up right now. No, excuse me. It's going to start at 3 o'clock. So you've got about 40 minutes until the max discount is up. And it's C.J. Stroud who just needs to pass for 1 yard. Now, the Patriots are very good. It's a good defense. My guess is C.J. will get a yard passing, but I guess stranger things have happened. Our good friends at Prize Picks. All right, conference championship weekend in the NFL. I think we're going to have 4 really good games. At least that's my hope. Start things off in the AFC, where Josh Allen clearly is both the best and most accomplished quarterback left standing right now. Now, you can't be that reductive when it comes to football. The Bills are the 4th worst rushing defense in the NFL, and the Broncos over the past 8 weeks have the number 3 success rate on the ground. So this isn't an awesome matchup for Buffalo, and the line has gone back and forth a bunch of different times. According to the Fox Sports book that I have in front of me, the Bills are your favorite as of now. They're favored by 1.5 on the road in Denver. These two teams played in the wild card round a year ago. The Bills finally get a road playoff win against Jacksonville last week. I'm going with the Bills here because I do believe that as a result of what Josh Allen has been through, juxtaposed to the lack of playoff experience for Bo Nix, that should be enough to get this done. Although, when it comes to Denver's defense, 68 sacks on the year, that's 5th most in NFL history. But Josh Allen's only sacked on 16% of his dropbacks when he's pressured because he has the ability to escape, as we know. As far as a prop bet goes, Josh Allen, anytime TD seems like a good bet for that one. But give me the Bills on the road. All right, Texans, Patriots. Actually, no, let's go to the NFC because we'll go in chronological order. Niners, Seahawks. Okay, the Seahawks are favored by 7 as of now. Sam Darnold has a little bit of an oblique issue, but he is going to play. At least those are the reports as of now. These two teams played not too long ago, and Seattle's red zone offense has been a massive issue for them over the past 8 weeks. They're actually 30th in red zone over the past 8 weeks after a good start to the season. The Niners are so depleted, though. I have a hard time believing they can go up to Seattle at Lumen in an insane environment against the Vegas favorite to win the Super Bowl and actually get it done. Christian McCaffrey scored a touchdown in his first 8 playoff games. That's tied for an NFL record. Of course, George Kittle is out. The Tongas kid is going to step in. He's a pretty good backup tight end. But this will be Kyle Shanahan's ultimate test if he can continue this duct tape and shoe goo approach and smoke and mirrors to beat the number 1 seed on the road. I'm hoping for a good game. The over-under is 44.5, which is super low. It's even lower than Bills-Broncos, believe it or not. So Seattle's defense is for real. Ben Solak joined us this week, and he said that's the one group as far as the teams that are left that he believes in most. I'll take Seattle in this one, but I'll lay the points on the Niners because I think that's kind of a big spread. All right, let's head over now to Texans and Patriots at Gillette. Now, this is a situation where the Texans have never advanced past this round in the history of their team. It's also the best defense the Texans have ever had. The Patriots have held their past 3 opponents to 10 points or under, and that's actually tied for a Patriots record. Over under 40.5. This feels a little bit like we were talking about last week with the defensive battle between the Texans and the Steelers. Of course, the Texans smoke them. I'm actually taking Houston in this one, even though there will be no Nico Collins. He is in concussion protocol, and he hasn't even started the 5-step process to get back. Maybe this is the Jet fan in me. I just think I always see towards the experience of the quarterback position. Drake May is awesome. Of course, I think he's got a bright future. The Patriots are your favorite, but I'm actually taking the road dog. Give me the Texans to win. All right, last game. I find this one more fascinating than most. The Rams have never played in a playoff game that has a temperature below 25 degrees. All of the projections right now is that Soldier Field on Sunday is going to be 0 degrees or maybe even colder with wind gusts at 33 miles an hour. Now, Matt Stafford has thrown for multiple touchdowns in 8 straight playoff games. That's second in NFL history. He's healthy, even though he has that injury to his finger. He's going to play. He's going to be fine. This game actually doesn't feature a lot of notable injuries. These are probably the 2 most healthy teams as it pertains to who they're going to run out coming up on Sunday night. The Rams are favored by 3.5. The over-under is 48.5. And Chicago, to me, is an excellent story, and the future is bright if you're a Bears fan for the first time. But I use the term smoke and mirrors with the Niners. If we're honest about the Bears, they've had an unbelievable ability to come back, but they've had a lot of kind of bounces go their way and some luck go their way. I'm high on the Rams. I actually think they have a chance to win it all. I'll let you know who I'm going to pick to win the Super Bowl later on, but give me the Rams on the road to beat the Bears. So if you're looking for some picks, I'm taking the Bills. I'm taking a lot of road teams. I'm taking the Bills on the road. I'm taking Texans on the road. I'm taking Seattle at home, and give me the Rams over the Bears. For a really exciting weekend ahead in the world of pro football. We'll get back to some of the stuff. We've got Sam Monson who's going to join us to preview the weekend ahead in the NFL. But we will catch our first break of the day, and coming up on the other side, we'll switch gears to some NBA with our NBA Daily Assist guest, Dave McMenamin from ESPN. Friday show, off and running. Good to have you with us right here on ESPN 700. Night off for the Utah Jazz. They'll be back in Dallas tomorrow, losing to the Mavs last night. An unserious effort once again because, well, you know the deal. The Lakers lost to the Hornets. Goodness gracious. A lot going on in Lakerland. We'll start things off on a Friday to talk some NBA basketball. Our guest is Dave McMiniman. David, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm just dealing with, first world problems, airplane maintenance delay, hoping that 30 minutes doesn't become longer.
Are you currently sitting in the first class section of the plane?
I'm actually in like the swanky Delta Lounge, so where there's free food and beverages. So woe is me.
Just real quick, if I could paint the picture. So what you're telling me is currently you're sitting in the Delta Lounge, probably snacking on fine meats and cheeses, and you have to wait. You have to wait 30 extra minutes to take your first class seat to wherever you're going. Is that what's happening?
It's a maintenance issue, though. So 30 could be 45. That would really inconvenience my day.
Oh, okay. So an extra 45 minutes to once again walk down the terminal and sit in first class and judge everybody as they walk by you.
Yeah, I got my $75 beard trim yesterday.
Okay.
For the road trip.
My gosh. I do want you to know that I had 3 different friends text me saying Dave McMiniman is married to Doris Burke after our hit last week.
That gave me a legitimate laugh. I laughed subsequent to it just thinking about your quip, so that was pretty good.
I was just glad that I got you because I know you do these hits all over the country, and I just want to make sure when you know that you're coming on my show, you're never going to be bored.
There you go. I can't say that I've ever been bored on this show with you.
Okay, well, I'm about to make you bored because we're going to talk Jazz. Just kidding. Okay. Well, not kidding about talking about the Jazz. Let me ask you this. Because throughout the course of this unserious season, and we all understand why, and I agree with the approach because they have to hold on to the asset. I've already asked you about Keontae. I feel like we've seen enough that the offensive stuff from him is real. But let me ask you what people around the league are now saying about Ace, because last night the Jazz were getting smoked, but we saw a nice catch and shoot corner 3 from Ace, a couple of really big time dunks and alley-oop, and then scoring. They're starting to become these Ace Bailey moments where, and he's still so young. This is still his rookie season. I'm absolutely long gaming it with this kid. But now that we're, getting close to almost literally halfway done with games played, what's the talk around the league about the Jazz rookie Ace Bailey?
When we were in Salt Lake City not too long ago, I was out on the court and chatting with one of the Lakers assistants, and Ace was going through his pregame warm up, and I was like, "Yeah, what do you think of him?" And he was just raving just about the size. He is built in a lab. We saw Brandon Miller last night with the Hornets. Ace Bailey has that type of build. And as you look at where this league is going and needing to cover so much ground and trying to turn steals and deflections into advantage basketball opportunities, 3-on-2, 2-on-1 fast breaks, finishing at the rim, he's kind of what you'd want. And obviously he is so young, and you could look at something like Kobe Bryant's rookie season, Kevin Garnett's rookie season. The stats didn't quite translate, but there were the moments, right, where you're like, oh, okay, with the reps, this player has kind of the prototypical body, athleticism, skills that you can see fitting in. And I think he's, checking off some of those boxes. And there's going to need to be efficiency, and there's going to need to be the chance to prove himself in games that matter, all of those things. But I think first eye test, he's been, a worthy draft pick that high in the draft.
Yeah, only time will tell, but there's a lot to like. One more thing here. The danger, and we've kind of alluded to this over the past little bit, and I honestly don't know if there's anything here, but, this is really the 4th straight year of unserious approach to competition. When it comes to habits, when it comes to, trying to be a pro, and as a young player, after, 3-4 years, all is getting your heads kicked in by the other team for the most part. What sort of danger? I don't even know if there's data out there with this. Maybe there is, with some of the old Hollinger stuff or something. But what sort of danger is there to stunt the growth of a player when all this player knows when it comes to being a pro is getting his head kicked in?
Well, I think there's kind of two lanes of danger. One is you pick up poor habits, and those kind of like your care factor is affected, and then that could completely change your career trajectory. The other thing, and this is more out of your control, and I feel for players in that situation, but like I remember the Lakers, had to be 2012, 2013, around that range. They had a tough year. Kobe was injured, and they had Kendall Marshall on their team, and he'd kind of been kicked around the league a little bit after a successful career at UNC. And he had a good year. Like he averaged let's say 15 and 7 or something like that. And I'd go around to arenas and ask scouts like, "Oh, what do you think about the Lakers' young core?" And it was like, "Well, yeah, sure, he's putting up 15 and 7, but it's on a team that's gonna be in the lottery. Like, does this mean anything?" And I think that is kind of moving forward the stench that some of the Jazz players can pick up. And that's going to be a challenge for the front office and the coaching staff when they have to continue to sell their vision to these players and their representatives, quite frankly, because, is it worth it? You're going to come out clean on the other side, or is this going to, as we pursue our vision, are you going to be the kind of the shrapnel as part of that plan? And that is kind of the danger overall of being towards the bottom for an extended period of time. And we'll see. Again, I think the example of Keontae George, right? That's something that you would say, well, maybe they have this thing figured out. And Keontae George, hearing him talk about the tough love and the tough coaching he got from Will Hardy, and in the midst of the team struggling, he would still be able to find a pathway forward. I think that example can do wonders for the other players in the program.
Let me ask you one more thing. I mean, every fan base has the delusional whatever percent, and every fan base has the people that believe things. And oftentimes, certainly here, I feel like we have a lot of Jazz fans that only watch the Jazz and then I'll watch the NBA. So there's this portion of the fan base that's like, yeah, Lowry and Keontae both deserve to be all-stars. And I'm like, well, they've only won 14 games. So, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Marketing is the one. If there is going to be an all-star, it should be Lowry. I mean, he's a far better player, and he's far more well-rounded. Keontae George is not going to be an all-star. Do you think there's a chance Marketing makes it back on this year?
I mean, his numbers are remarkable. So certainly there's a chance. It's a tough thing. As media, we only vote for starters.
Right.
And I think there's a pretty clear group in both conferences. And then quite frankly, because it's selected by the coaches, so, it'll look to be if the Spurs, I guess Spurs and Denver are both jockeying for number 2, but because the coaching staff can't pick it 2 years in a row, OKC will be out of the equation. It'll either be Mitch Johnson or David Adelman. That's where horse trading goes on, right? I mean, of course, most of the coaches, they pick who they truly believe is the right people, but that there can be some influence and sway there. And, if maybe Markkanen had a great game against the Spurs or a great game against the Nuggets, that could be the deciding factor, right? So we'll see. I mean, he certainly would be deserving. He's proven himself as an all-star before. But, listen, the Lakers are trying to get 3 guys in the game. I don't think it's probably going to happen because of Austin Reeves' unfortunately timed calf injury. But, you're not going to deny LeBron in year 23 and Luka's going to be a starter. And so, when things like that happen, the Lakers are probably going to be the 6th seed or something like that by the time the All-Star game comes around. It's going to be tougher to have a team that's the 14th seed get a spot.
Oh, is it year 23 for LeBron? I had forgotten until I saw that dopey patch. What?
Wow, dopey.
Come on, Dave. At what point are we going to be like, dude, come on. Come on.
Here's where I will accept your criticism. I will defend it in one sense. is that I don't know if you collected cards as a kid, but
I did.
If you open up a pack of cards and got one of the patches on his jersey in his 23rd season, I think that's pretty cool. I think baseball's done it in conjunction with Topps, where you have the opening day patch, your debut patch, and it's literally you get, as a collector, get to hold something that maybe that guy goes on to be all-time great or a Hall of Famer, and you have a piece of their jersey from the first game they ever played, and this could be a piece of the jersey of an all-time great the last season he ever played. That sentiment, I think, is cool. Maybe I'm a sap, but I think that is cool.
You think LeBron is going to donate his patches to a card collecting company?
Well, I mean, that's what the deal is. It's in conjunction with Topps.
Okay, I might just be grumpy because I didn't get my cold tub, hyperbaric chamber, nap, Normatec activation, stretching, rehabbing, lifting, and pregame meal in today. So that's my bad. I'm sorry.
Fair enough.
Come on, man.
I think you got the whole list. So it's pretty good.
Like, how long did he work on that script in order to walk everybody through just how heroic he is to be able to play in back-to-back basketball games?
I mean, he was asked by Dan Wojcicki of The Athletic. It wasn't like he was given a prompt ahead of time. He didn't know he was going to be asked that question.
Okay. All right, fine. We can move on.
He just chose to be forthright. Now, I mean, listen, I think there is an unprecedented situation. This has never been a guy, 23 years old, 23 seasons in, to be still playing in the NBA. He was at one point the youngest player in the NBA, and now for several years he's been the oldest player in the NBA. That deserves some sort of interest. I mean, we talk about the routines of players in their primes. Why can't we ask about the routine of a player who's trying to, extend his prime to unprecedented levels? I can see the eye roll to some extent, because it's like, okay, you're a professional, so like we don't need to hear how the sausage is made. Like, you're in the NBA for a reason, and all of us, I do whatever I have to do to be on, covering games, and you do whatever you have to do to be in the radio booth and put an entertaining program. Okay, fine. But I don't think it's the worst thing in the world to kind of share that.
Here's where I'm at with it. Okay. And you and I have talked about this over the years. There's a reason. And look, there isn't just one reason, because this is a nuanced, layered conversation. It's a different generation. We have access to more voices. Social media has changed several things, from politics to basketball. But there's a reason, whether it is Jordan, whether it's Jeter, whatever sport we're talking about. Like, LeBron is this generation's that dude. He is, and I will never push back on that. And also only give him the flowers, as the kids would say, and a tremendous amount of credit and respect for being told at the age of 16 or 17, like, you're next. And he was, and he's even been more than that. The longevity, the numbers, the productivity, like, as a player, I'm not knocking on him because I don't know how you could. But I do think there's a reason why he is just not as widely respected, beloved, and adored from both his peers and the general public as he should be, based off of who he is as a player in this generation. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I think a part of it, and I think it gets to the era we're in, and you mentioned all the boys, I think overexposure is a healthy ingredient to the kind of cauldron of hate that he experiences. And some of that's his own doing, right? Like, you watch a football game, and you're not even caring about the NBA, and you're seeing him in a DraftKings commercial, and you're seeing him in a Hennessy commercial, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can't get away from the guy. I think sometimes familiarity breeds contempt. And then, of course, like, I'm not going to say, like, everything he does has been he hasn't stepped in it sometimes. Of course he has. But if you kind of remove some of those things and just look at, like, the dedication, the IQ, the ability to influence the way business is done in the sport, player empowerment movement, certainly he's been the flag bearer for that. His legacy will be pretty strong, but again, it's not going to be for everyone. And also, listen, I grew up watching Michael Jordan. I think Michael Jordan is a better player. A lot of that, I admit, is like my pre-developed brain, like, have all these fuzzy memories of the guy, and like, I see him as this like shining beacon. I think Jordan lived in an era where we weren't quite scrutinizing our players and our athletes the way we are today. because, one, we weren't seeing him all the time. You only see him so often.
Well, Dave, I think your whole perspective is whack, and maybe you'll just love me when I fade to black. But anyway, we can.
Well done. Wow. How long did you prepare that to drop that?
Literally 10 seconds, Dave. 10
Okay.
seconds is
all
all.
right. Well, that's all LeBron did too. Then.
Okay. All right. I get it. And look, I'm beholden to the things that allow me to pay my bills as well. So I get it, Dave. I got to ask.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
okay. That's a low blow.
Oh, no. That was actually an admission that I understand where you're coming from. I do.
Okay.
Come on, Dave. Come on. You know it's all love. I got to ask you about the Rich Paul stuff, though, because this is another byproduct of what I perceive to be like nobody else's agent could do what Rich Paul has done without any sort of blowback. How is this legitimately received in the Laker organization where LeBron's agent is doing a podcast with Max Kellerman and is front-facing about deals he thinks they should make?
It has not been popular. I'll just say at an organizational level, I won't quite get to exactly where that lies, but it hasn't been popular. And obviously, I reported on a scene that occurred the other night where you have Austin Reeves' agent going up to Rich Paul, not in a jovial manner, to discuss something that, quite frankly, like shouldn't need to be discussed.
Yeah.
Like, listen, everybody talks in this industry, a lot of talking behind one another's back, and that seems to be the accepted form of discourse, right? If it involves an opinion that could affect another agent or another player's kind of livelihood, right? To put it out there like that, we've never seen it before, and Rich is trying to do something that, listen, Rich also, while he's in the middle of, having the fourth most billable contracts in the entire league, has a biography come out. He's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. He has his own sneaker from New Balance. He's done a lot of things that no one else has ever done. And I think this one comes with more risk than the other things. I think the other things kind of would potentially just create some envy with his competitors. But this one, listen, I think this is a distraction for the team right now. I don't think it is something that is going to sabotage the team, but it's a distraction. And, LeBron separated himself from Rich Paul. And that's, he basically said, we're two grown men and, he can do whatever is his prerogative. But it's just not the best look. And the timing of it to occur when, the Lakers are in a tailspin, that makes it all the more worse.
Are you mad at me? I feel like you're mad at me.
No, I didn't love the pay your bill line, but other than that, we're good.
All right. I apologize because I meant it like sincerely. And honestly, it really is a commentary on your point of, has there ever been a more powerful player in the league? David Stern could call Michael Jordan and basically tell him what's what, right? Is there a case to be made that LeBron is the most powerful singular figure in pro basketball? And is it even a debate, right?
I don't think it's really a debate. I mean, listen, do you even think, let's say the last 10 years since Silver took over, 10 or so years, the All-Star break was extended largely in part because of LeBron James' personal plea explaining to Silver how much his time was taken for all the obligations and not getting a real break. The NBA bubble, after it came to a halt because of the Wildcat strike, it restarted because of LeBron James being in a room with the rest of the players being like, guys, we need to go forward. We're going to use this moment to leverage it and ask for more things from the league. And if we don't play, there's going to be a lockout and all you're going to lose money. And he got everybody to move forward basically at his behest. Those are big things too. Obviously, if he doesn't go to Miami, you're not seeing Kevin Durant go to Golden State. And, the course of basketball history has changed based on his kind of example of that. As a player, you don't have to be beholden to the city. It's kind of changed in some ways. That's hurt sports fandom, I think. But at the same token, like there have been players prior to that moment in 2010 that were passed around the country like pawns by their franchises. So he's certainly the most influential NBA player in the last 20 years. And there's probably argument to be made in all of pro sports in the last 20 years.
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure that it is an argument as I'm thinking through it and going over names. And the most powerful people in most leagues, historically speaking, that none of them have been players, really, when you think about it. I mean, the draw is always the player. Like, we don't watch a game through the prism of what is Adam Silver going to do next with the league, or, you know, a great, like, we all watch because of the players, but intentionally. And I don't, like, in the NFL, all the power is with Goodell and the owners. Like, I'm thinking through this, Dave. I don't know that, historically speaking, there has been a more singular, powerful individual figure, what, love him or hate him, in sports, maybe even historically speaking, than LeBron.
Yeah, I mean, wow. Going all the way back, that's very interesting. And we'd probably have to have a longer conversation about it. But I mean, I think what you'd say in the modern era, like Scott Boras is probably the person in baseball generally who gets, you know, yeah, in football, it's clearly the owners and Goodell acting as an arm of them. I don't have enough knowledge of hockey to be able to offer an opinion there.
Yeah.
But when it comes to players, yeah, it's a very short list. And like, yeah, he's certainly leading that conversation.
Yeah, Tiger in golf, now that I'm thinking about it, just because how he changed the sport and how everybody became, you know, and not like NBA players were wanting for cash, but, you know, the player empowerment and players, you know, finally being able to believe that and understand that there's no loyalty when a team wants to trade you or a front office sours on you. You know, so whether it's player salaries or the ability to choose where you live, I think the impact is undeniable. It's the approach oftentimes, as we talked about, to me, that can fall on deaf ears. But again, like, if you're in the public eye since you were 16, 17 years old, you're gonna shoot at some targets and miss. I think that's just inevitable. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Tiger's a good point. Like Sunday Red, I'm very curious to see like how that affects other athletes moving forward. Like, you know, obviously Steph Curry's in this moment right now where he's parting from Under Armour right now, courting every sneaker and apparel company, but like maybe he sees the Tiger model and like starts his own brand, and then, you know, that could be a very late career, huge impact move by Tiger.
Are we friends again?
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Let me just ask you about the trade deadline. You know, we talked last week. I'm in the space where I don't think marketing's gone. I think they want to hold on to him and keep the asset. The Nurkic thing is out there with the Jazz, but that's not anything that's going to move the needle. We've already seen the trade deal go down. If you had to give me your best guess, I know the Jaw stuff is out there. I think the Pelicans have moved off the Zion stuff, but a deal most likely to go down, or a couple that you're hearing about that you think is actually something that is noticeable or could change the landscape a little bit?
Kuminga is going to be moved. It's just a matter of where and when. I saw Steve Kerr did a local radio appearance in San Francisco today. I think it was KNBR, and called it a difficult situation. And when pressed about how it gets resolved, he basically said it's not good for anyone right now. So with that being known and understood, and now that January 15th has passed and contractually Kuminga can actually be moved, we'd have to expect that's going to be coming. But they could, you know, they're already comfortable having him on the bench and living in this kind of space. And so I don't think it's necessarily going to happen today. We have until February 5th of the trade deadline. But that's one for sure. A lot of talk about Michael Porter Jr. in Brooklyn being moved, former Denver champion. I was at the game last night and spoke to several scouts, and that name was brought up by scouts from the Eastern Conference team and a Western Conference team. You know, I don't think Giannis is getting moved. Again, New Orleans has been adamant about, like, they're not necessarily selling. Like, they like their pieces, and they don't really need to sell. They don't feel, you know, that's publicity. So we'll see if that's positioning or that's actually true. And, I think, from there, like, it's who are going to be the teams that clearly decide they're out of it. Like, is Miami going to clear the books in pursuit of Giannis and kind of punt on another play-in season type season? And then they have some pieces that are available. Is Memphis serious about moving Ja? And could that be the big domino? So, like, I generally have the feeling that it's not going to be a super significant trade deadline in terms of huge names, but someone like Michael Porter Jr. can turn a conference finalist to an NBA finalist, or a team maybe with finals aspirations to championship aspirations. And so it's not that he's not a big piece, but he's just not a big name.
Fair enough. All right, my friend, we'll set you loose. Appreciate the time. Safe travels, and we'll chat soon. Thanks, Dave.
Yes, sir. Take care. Have a great weekend.
All right, Dave McMenamin covers the NBA for ESPN. Get him on Twitter at MC10. There's a good chance Dave is never joining the show again. It's interesting because it didn't even register in my mind. Like, here's the fact of the matter, okay? And you're a LeBron guy, all right? So I'm sure you're going to side with Dave on this. And it's not even like one side against the other, but it didn't register in my mind that was going to upset Dave, because I think it's so widely accepted and understood that if you are in the ecosystem of the NBA, if you're NBA media, and certainly if you're a broadcast partner, like, it's different if you're working for like the LA Times and you have to cover the Lakers and you're a journalist and you're asking questions. If you work for Amazon Prime, if you work for NBC, if you work for ESPN, it feels like none of those people dare to come at LeBron, like, at all. You know what I mean? And so, like, I wasn't even bringing that up as something that was a shot at him. That's how he took it, and I understand it, which is why I tried to kind of bring it back around a little bit. But it's one of the things that bothers me about the LeBron dynamic, where, he's front-facing about all these things and so adamant about all these things, and he's asked about China, and he recoils away. Like, wait a second, you have enough information to insert your opinion about this, but when it's actually something that, is worthy of criticism, you don't even want to have the conversation. I feel like there's so many things that LeBron does that are front-facing and misguided and corny and ridiculous, and I just don't feel like any of the league broadcast partners have the nerve or the gall to say anything, which underscores the conversation we were having. I'm not sure there's been a more powerful player in the history of pro sports in any league, and I mean that. I'm dead serious.
Well, and that's where it gets interesting. Is he has so much power, but that comes just from being so good. And then let's be clear, he has this background team of folks who pull strings, and they actually do make differences behind the scenes in the league. And that's something that there's definitely some sensitivity around, right? You mentioned broadcast partners. I mean, we understand that here. There's folks that we have to tiptoe around and not speak on certain things.
And always not tweet.
So, yeah, no, it kind of underscores the fact that it's just part of media. Unless you have like your own independent YouTube channel, you gotta have to understand where the lights are kept on.
Yeah, it's a really delicate, funny balance to walk. David Aldridge, the debate, we didn't even wade into it, but the debate that was happening as a result of the reporter who asked the Jacksonville coach the question, you saw that, right?
Yeah.
David Aldridge from The Athletic, who has come on the show, not for a number of years, wrote a really, I thought, thought-provoking, insightful kind of think piece on that entire thing. You know what? Let's actually get into this because we do have to catch a break. But that was an Dave's my guy, consider him a friend. And it's interesting that I didn't even register that is something that would have landed with him in the way that it did because of the dynamic of everybody in the NBA being so terrified to approach anything that's criticizing LeBron James, which for a player to be able to ascend to that level, I think is interesting to talk about. But journalistically, it brings up an interesting conversation. All right, we're going to get back to some NFL with Sean. Sean Mooney covers college basketball. He's on our radio station. Sam Monson will be our guest at 3:30. Sean Mooney will be our guest at 4 o'clock. And then a big week in the world of professional golf with a lot of live players potentially coming back to the tour, and one of them officially in Brooks Koepka. So Paul Pugmire stopped by. Busy Friday show. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right. We're still friends. Texted with Dave during the break. Yeah, still friends. That got loose. And, it's funny. For 7 years, I did a radio show with someone named Gordon Monson, who writes pieces for the Salt Lake Tribune. And oftentimes, if you remember the show, first of all, thank you. If you listened back then, hello, how are you? Oftentimes, Gordon would write a piece, and still does, I don't know if you've noticed, that may strike a nerve.
Oh, no, I have no idea about that.
With the community. Yeah, you and Gordon had a thing once upon a time. And so it was always funny when – so here's how it would go. Gordon would write a piece. People would be upset. And then Gordon would come in, and he would want to talk about the piece. And oftentimes he wrote something that I didn't agree with, even though I understood where he was coming from. And he became a dear friend. So I'm like in this position where I'm standing up for Gordon to other people and then trying to explain to Gordon why everyone's mad, because clearly he had written something incendiary and oftentimes intentionally so, and then done the whole like, hey, I'm old and confused. And like, Gordon, don't do that, okay? So what it would turn into, and one example that's coming to mind is Brady Papinga. You know Brady Papinga? You remember Brady Papinga? He was a really good player for BYU, played in the NFL. And I'm trying to think is Brady on staff anywhere? Is he coaching anywhere? Obviously, Kelly just got the defensive coordinator job. Did Brady get into coaching?
I don't think
he did. But Gordon wrote a piece on Bronco Mendenhall. And I'm kind of just remembering portions of it. This was probably a decade ago, if not a little bit more than that. No, it was more than that, because Kalani's been on the job for 10 years. So maybe like 12 years ago, Bronco used to do this thing where he would just like quote scripture during press conferences and be very front-facing about like we're stripling warriors and, intertwine LDS culture and nomenclature into his speeches as a football coach. And Gordon, who is an active member of the LDS Church, in case I think a lot of people don't know that because of some of the things he wrote and writes, wrote a piece just kind of disagreeing with bringing your religion into competition and just laying it on very, very thick when it comes to, talking about football and drawing a parallel between football games and like stripling warrior battles and scriptural references and such. And Brady Papinga asked to come on the show. And so our producer, Austin, shout out Austin Horton, my guy, he asked us, like, is it cool if Brady comes on the show? And Gordon's like, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, all right, this is going to get weird. So Brady comes on the show, and it became very clear very quickly that Brady was there to fight. He wasn't there to have a decent conversation. He wasn't there to be respectful. He was just there to fight. He wanted to come on the show so he could crack on Gordon publicly, and it got so uncomfortable that I actually hung up on him. And Brady started to bring religion into the conversation and started to have all of these like references, LDS references. And look, I was raised in the thing, so I knew exactly what he was doing. He was trying to corner Gordon. And while I understood Brady's point that he was trying to stand up for Bronco, he's trying to stand up for his guy, Brady started getting personal, and it started getting weird when he started bringing religion into it. So I look at Gordon, I could tell Gordon was kind of recoiling a little bit. And so to kind of run interference, and I don't want to say protect him, Gordon can take care of himself, but like stand up for my friend, and also not appreciating the tone and the direction Brady was taking the conversation, I just hung up on him. I'm like, good luck, whatever you're doing, dude, like take care. This is not a place for you to air your grievances about people that you don't think look at BYU and your church the right way. Like, go do that somewhere else. And that's just one example of like what it was like doing a show with one of the most polarizing columnists we have in the market. And maybe, if we're honest, probably the only polarizing, due respect to people that do the job, maybe the only polarizing columnist in the market. I can't even name another one, quite frankly. Everyone else is just kind of covering a sport and oftentimes doing what they have to do to endear themselves to the people they're covering instead of actually doing their job. Gordon actually writes things and believes most of them. And sometimes I do think there's a little bit of an incendiary approach in the name of engagement, respectfully. But Gordon, he approaches his craft where he's not a fan. He really isn't. I know BYU fans think he's a Ute fan undercover. Ute fan always thinks Gordon is a BYU fan undercover. He's neither. And he covers the Jazz. He covers RSL. He covers BYU and Utah with the same approach, which ultimately is, whatever is newsworthy, he will cover it. He will write about it, and he will do his best to, yes, at times be a little bit intentionally provocative for you to react to what he's writing, but also genuinely believes what he's writing is the right thing to write. Now, it opens up for disagreements, which is fine. It's what makes the world go around. It's important to have healthy conversations surrounding disagreements, and we're just so bad at that now because of the political discourse that has seeped into everything. It's impossible to sit with somebody that you disagree with, and oftentimes you just rather not even engage because you're so far apart about things that seem very obvious to me that may not seem very obvious to you. All right? So if you missed it, and the reason I bring up that story is I was never ultimately fully comfortable with doing combative radio. I think a lot of radio shows actually have that as their shtick. A lot of day-to-day shows have that as their shtick. And in fact, I know they do because I was kind of asked to do it once upon a time. And the approach is, okay, here's the side you're going to take. And here is the side your co-host is going to take. And for me, it was like, well, wait a second. What if I don't believe in that side? What if I can't just fake having some sort of take or knowledge about something I don't believe. I'm not just going to take the angle in the name of just being, contradictory, having a contradictory opinion to my co-host just so we can argue and yell at each other and just have it be combative. Now, some people really love it. And in the history of sports talk radio, that's why a lot of people like Jim Rome built his career on callers. Mike Francesa, Mike and the Mad Dog, their entire shtick was just fighting with each other all day to the point they wanted to kill each other by the time that show ended. And I just have never wanted to do a show like that. So we had Dave McMiniman on last segment, and I didn't launch into this debate, but I'm sure you've seen it if you're a sports fan. After the Bills beat the Jags in the AFC wildcard game last Sunday, a reporter asked Liam Cohen, the head coach of the Jags, didn't ask him anything. And, the interesting thing, when this video first started to surface, I was like, oh, this is just one of these fans masquerading as a media member that actually is credentialed. Still to this day, it's hilarious to me that that's a thing, but it is a thing. And it turns out it's Lynn Jones from the Jacksonville Free Press who's been doing this for a long, long time. I mean, this is not a newbie to the profession, and this is not just a blogger that was given a credential by Jacksonville because she's a homer. This is actually a legitimate member of the press, Lynn Jones. Lynn Jones, and she's been doing it for a number of different years. And a lot of people had a lot of things to say about this. Okay. A lot of people had a lot of feelings about this. And, I'm one to kind of just observe and listen to a reaction and then just be more curious about the way people feel about it. I didn't have a instantaneous take right away. I wasn't like, that's awesome. That's horrible. A lot of people clipped the video and sent it out on social. Adam Schefter's like, this is an awesome moment between a reporter and the Jags head coach. A lot of people took an issue with the description as awesome because, again, it wasn't really a question. It was, I'm trying to pull up the transcript here. Okay, yeah, here's what she said. And then a lot of people were mad at the reporters that were saying, well, this is unfair to reporters that are on a deadline and actually have to ask questions so they can write what they need on deadline. And then people are calling them, all right, you're no fun. You hate the sports you cover. You hate the sports that you cover. This is supposed to be fun. And I'm actually kind of somewhere in the middle. First of all, this should be fun. And it's why I love doing this. It's why I enjoy the job. We exist in the toy aisle of life, as is talked about quite a bit. And that's one of the reasons I love doing it. I don't ever want to be a political pundit. That feels like a very miserable existence. And those people all seem pretty miserable to me on both sides of the aisle. That's why I do this. It is supposed to be fun. And I do enjoy the sports I cover. I do genuinely get home and I'm pumped to watch an NBA game. I genuinely get home and I'm pumped to watch an NFL playoff game or a college football game or whatever it is. I enjoy it. Going to the games, experiencing the games, getting to know the people, it's something that I very much enjoy doing. And I feel oftentimes in other areas of media, these people do not seem happy. All they're doing is fighting and yelling with each other all day, every day. So after the game, this lady from the Jacksonville Free Press, Lynn Jones, said the following, quote, "I just want to tell you congratulations on your success, young man." "Thank you," Leon Cohen replied. "You hold your head up. You guys had the most magnificent season. You did a great job up there today. You just hold your head up okay." So, first of all, it was 22 seconds of the press conference, which to me is like, okay, it's fine. Like, it was just like a snapshot. And some journalists, right, have come out against this because ultimately it flies in the face of what journalism is supposed to be and how these people were educated and trained. Now, I didn't go to J school, didn't go to broadcast school. This was not a lane that I ever thought I'd find myself in until I had an opportunity to kind of do it a little bit on the side and then realized that I liked it a lot and thought if I kept doing it, maybe at some point I can be good at it or whatever. So we talk about this with like Kamrani all the time. We talk about this with Kyle Bonagura all the time. Like, I'm not one that was classically trained as like an old school journalist, but I do respect the profession and I always have. And I've always been kind of intrigued by it and respect people that approach it and do it the right way. Because I do believe in the fourth estate and I do believe in speaking truth to power and I do believe checks and balances are important. But as somebody who isn't classically trained in like journalism school or broadcast school, the people that have chimed in here to really be very critical of her doesn't really land with me. Now, on the other side, Bernice King, the daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King, posted this, quote, "We need more of what Lynn Jones from Jacksonville Free Press did. Humanity plus compassion does not equal unprofessional. If so, the world could certainly use more, quote, unprofessional journalism right now. Thank you, Mrs. Jones." So a lot of reaction to this. David Aldridge from The Athletic, who's covered the NBA for a number of different years, wrote a really, really good thought-provoking piece on this that I thought covered a bunch of different angles here. I would encourage you, I always encourage you to subscribe to The Athletic, support our friend CK and our friends who are over there. I would encourage you to go read it for yourself because it's not something I can unpack here in just a couple of minutes. But it does talk about a lot of this dynamic as it pertains to how the discourse has turned into whether or not this was professional, whether or not we need more of it, and whether or not people who cover certain sports enjoy their craft or enjoy the sports they actually cover, right? And it leads into this conversation about the new, and I think it's Draymond Green who talks about new media. He's never really been able to like define it, but it's like a term that's been out there. And what new media seems to be, according to my understanding of it, has nothing to do with journalism at all. Has nothing to do with the way this craft once upon a time was thought to, you have to approach it this way or you can't keep your job. New journalism is not comprised of journalists, as far as what I can tell. It's mostly former players and fans and bloggers who simply will do whatever the teams tell them to do or propagate, the message that the team wants the fan base to hear, whether or not it's true. Now, I'm under no illusion when it comes to messaging from ownership and front office. Like, they're all lying to all of us all the time. They're lying to all of us all the time. I know this because I've been on the other side of it, and I understand, what you try to do from an ownership perspective and a front office perspective to make sure that you're spreading a message to the public that clearly has an agenda behind it. True or not, you want people to perceive your team in a certain way or believe messaging in a certain way or believe you're in a good place in a process of a rebuild when maybe you're not at all. But there are very few coaches or members of front offices that will actually stand up, answer questions honestly, They are constantly feeding you BS. They're constantly feeding us BS. I know that. And so what I find fascinating is to try to wade into the space to figure out what is actually true, as opposed to just blindly listening or believing anything that's given to us by any team. This is not a message sent to one team, one school, one sport. They all do it. Everybody, it's the name of the game. And you play the game the best way you can. Now, when you're in a spot of success, when you're a team that's winning at a high level, that's why the great Frank Layden story, or the great Frank Layden line always was, winning cures a myriad of sins. If you're winning championships, if you're going to the playoffs, if you're competing at a high level, you don't need to propagate anything, really, unless you run into some sort of ancillary issue where collateral damage is needed if a player or a coach gets in trouble, and then you know, that's where a good PR staff comes into play. But if you find yourself in a situation where there are questions about your process, if you're losing at a high level, if your fan base doesn't see a lot of progress at all, or if your fan base has legitimate questions about your process or what you're doing and why things aren't going better, or if there are stories out there that things are happening behind the scenes, damage control is done. And ultimately, you do whatever you have to do in order to get a message out there to the public that all is well, we know what we're doing. And if you've been around long enough, you actually can ascertain who knows and who doesn't, and who's approaching things the right way, and who's approaching things, with a plan and a vision, and who is organized, and all those things. You can tell, and you can tell who's giving you the truth, and you can tell who's actually feeding you full of BS. But when it comes to this job, and the reason I'll bring it back around to what happened last segment, as Dave McMenamin and I were having a conversation about LeBron, and LeBron recently has announced he's going to wear a number 23 patch on his jersey to commemorate the fact that this is his 23rd season in the NBA. I find that completely, I think it's just a turnoff. Like, it's thirst trap, it's attention seeking, it's look at me. And then LeBron, to Dave McMenamin and other reporters the other night, launched into his pregame routine in order to play in back-to-backs, which once upon a time wasn't even a story. And this gets into another topic that I've talked about with pro basketball, where the NBA employs employees that don't seem to want to show up for work, which I find just wild. And I know they've tried to do some things here or there, but I know we were spoiled with John and Carl. They played 82 games almost every single year, and back-to-backs never used to be a thing. And, it's odd that we're in this space with pro basketball of like load management that actually seems to have not helped the issue at all. Like, these players are getting hurt more. And I'm not an exercise sports scientist. I did not finish medical school. I'm not going to wade into the space. But a couple days ago, LeBron played in his first back-to-back of the season, and we're supposed to like celebrate that this is an amazing accomplishment. And he spent about 4 minutes educating the folk that in order to do this, our hero, our protagonist of the story, took a cold tub, went in a hyperbaric chamber, took a nap, did something called Normatec, activation, stretching, rehabbing, lifting, pregame meal, and just went on and on. And I'm watching this going like, what are we doing? So there's just something about the way he approaches his public persona that I think is really, really difficult to stomach. So Dave and I were kind of going back and forth about this, and I wasn't trying to bait Dave into a position of like criticizing LeBron. But for every push that I would make, Dave would push back, right? And which is fine. And so Dave and I have known each other for years. He comes on the show almost on a weekly basis during basketball season. And so I said to him, I understand, because we all, are beholden to the people that pay our bills or something like that. And he took issue with that. And I could tell, like, I tried to bring it back around throughout the course of the interview, and he was good enough to kind of hang in there. But you could tell, like, the tone of his voice that I had lost him pretty quick. And I get it. I understand why he feels the way he feels. But on the other side, I don't think it's incorrect. And I'm a guy that watches NBA basketball and consumes coverage of NBA basketball. And I just feel like all of the NBA's broadcasting partners are terrified of saying anything about LeBron. And you're in the space where you understand it, you get it, because what our conversation turned into, and as I'm thinking through this exercise, I actually am more solidified in the opinion now than I was last segment. In the history of sport, and I'm serious here, in the history of sport, there has not been a more powerful player than LeBron James with the NBA. The only parallel I can come up with was when Tiger was Tiger, like during the Tiger run, because Tiger changed everything about the game of golf. Everything about the game of golf. Player purses, the ability to make more money, simply interest, ratings, the business model. And by the way, he still is doing it, right? In a way LeBron is. There isn't an NFL equivalent, because I think the thing that people love about the NFL is there's no player, not Tom Brady, not anybody, that is bigger than the Shield, bigger than the league. The league is run by billionaire owners, and Roger Goodell is kind of their arm. There is no player that's bigger than the league, and there never has been. There's not an example in baseball. Ohtani might be the answer, but again, would you say Shohei Ohtani is the most powerful person in Major League Baseball right now, let alone historically speaking? LeBron seems to be singular in this way, where if you are in bed with the NBA, and that's a layered thing now because it's ESPN, it's ABC, it's Disney, right? It's Amazon Prime, it's NBC, NBA TV. If you're part of this ecosystem where your paycheck is tied to anything that has to do with the NBA, it feels like LeBron could do anything or say anything without anybody really being overly critical of him outside of Charles Barkley, now that I think about it, because that's what makes Charles great. But that was interesting and kind of jarred a bunch of different memories of doing the show in a more combative way, which I did once upon a time, and I try not to do that anymore. That was a 20-minute ramble. I'm not even sure where I'm going to land the plane, other than the fact that we do have to get to break because we're going to do more football coming up on the other side. Want to let you know that Advanced Window Products is Utah's #1 window replacement company. You can get $2,500 off when you buy 10 windows or more. Just call Advanced Window Products at 801-850-9100 or visit advancedwindows.com. Don't miss out on $2,500 off when you buy 10 windows or more. Give the mayor a call today at 801-850-9100. You won't regret it. Advanced Window Products, building, installing, and guaranteeing the best windows in Utah. All right, we're going to catch up with Sam Monson, preview the weekend ahead in the NFL. Sean Mooney stops by to talk some Utes, some golf with Paul Pugmire. We're going to say goodnight at 6 on a Friday show. Happy Friday to you here on ESPN 700. All right, don't forget, we are your home of college and pro football here in the market, and the divisional round of the NFL gets going tomorrow. You can hear tomorrow night's Saturday night game, 49ers, Seahawks on the station, Texans, Patriots, Rams, Bears. And then the final game of the college football season, the national championship game, can be heard on our station on Monday night. But let's preview the weekend ahead with our buddy Sam Monson on a Friday afternoon from PFF. What's up, Sam? How are you, man?
I'm doing well. How about you guys?
We're good. We're good. So a lot of people believe this is the best weekend of NFL playoff football. Do you concur with that?
I think sometimes the wild card weekend can be really good as well. But yeah, I think the first 2 weeks, the wild card and the divisional round, I think are really good weeks of football.
All right. Before we look forward, let's do look back on the wild card round, because I'm kind of with you. I oftentimes just say wild card round simply because there's more football. What do you want to shoot at first when it comes to those games? Because they were all awesome, maybe outside of the Patriots-Chargers game. What was your biggest takeaway from wild card weekend?
Yeah, certainly those first 4 games were really, really good, and then the last 2 were a little bit rough with that Chargers-Patriots game, and then the Steelers' ultimate collapse, which I think everyone kind of expected the longer that game went on. But yeah, the first 4 were awesome. I guess Josh Allen and the Bills getting by the Jags, which everyone expected them to do, but unfairly, I think. Like, the Jags were a legitimate team, and they really made them work for that game.
Yeah, they did. They did. And, before we get over here to the games coming up this weekend, we are here in Salt Lake City, and Jordan Love played his college ball not too far from here. So your thoughts on the comeback the Bears had? What do you think is next for the Packers, and where are we at right now with Jordan Love?
Yeah, I think the Packers are under a lot of pressure to do something. But I think, honestly, the self-reflection, the analysis they should be doing, I think it's a lot like the Bills from the last few years. It's a difficult spot to be in, but you have to look at what happened, how it went wrong, and ask yourself, was this a fundamental failing of the team and something we need to shift in a major way? Or does this just happen when you get, into the playoffs and you're going up against good football teams with extremely talented players on the other side, and sometimes you're going to come out on the wrong side of those games? Ultimately, they lost 2 of their 5 best players during the season in Micah Parsons and Tucker Kraft, and those guys being out there might have made the difference. So it's tough to sort of judge them and say, well, this is a failing of this team because they were missing some of their most important players. And Micah Parsons in particular, we saw the impact that he made on that team. Like, they swung big to get him in, 2 first-round draft picks, a huge contract, and it was working. They looked like one of the best teams in the league until he got hurt. And then the other part of that is, look, Caleb Williams is capable of these special, crazy comebacks. He's done it, multiple times just in the last few weeks, let alone against the Packers. And the weird thing about those games, the 3 games between Green Bay and Chicago, they all kind of look the same. All 3 of them, I think Green Bay were the better team for the majority of the game. And then late in the game, in like a 5-minute period, Caleb Williams and the Bears came back. And in 2 of the 3, they completed the comeback. And in one of them, they were stopped in the end zone from completing the comeback.
So the Matt LaFleur storyline, Sam, has been interesting. It was just such an epic collapse. And look, I like him. I think he's a good coach. But part of me wondered, with just the nature of how bad they folded, would he get gone? But reports are they're talking about a contract extension. His agent ripped the Packers yesterday, and now there's rumors they might even try to trade him in a weird coach trade. What do you think happens here?
Yeah, I think it would be crazy to move on from Matt LaFleur. I understand there have been some problems, in-game stuff, time management, timeout usage, these types of things. But the bottom line is he has the 2nd best record in the NFL since they gave him that job, behind only Andy Reid and the dynastic Kansas City Chiefs. That alone would mean I would need very good reasons to move on from him. You then look at, okay, look what he's done as the sort of quarterback guru part of it as well. He rejuvenated Aaron Rodgers, who, okay, it's easy to say he's a multiple-time MVP, but when Matt LaFleur got there, Aaron Rodgers had been declining for a bit. He'd sort of gone stale. We were wondering, was that Mike McCarthy's offense? Was it Aaron Rodgers? And Matt LaFleur, resuscitated his career, got multiple MVPs out of him. Then they transitioned to Jordan Love. He's become an extremely good quarterback. Malik Willis was seen as a guy who was so bad in Tennessee that he wasn't viable at all as a quarterback in the NFL, and he looks legitimately good. I think Matt LaFleur has been part of making him a lot of money with the backup stints that he's had in Green Bay. So he's had 3 tangible improvements of quarterbacks under his stewardship as well. You put those two things together, and that makes him one of the best coaches in the NFL, even with the in-game flaws that we're talking about. So I think they would be absolutely crazy to move on from him, even in terms of trading him away. I would lock him up and keep him as long as possible.
Yeah, I agree with you. Let's stay in the coaching space for a moment. As a Northeast boy who is in a split family with brothers who are Giants fans, and unfortunately I chose wrong. I chose the Jets, but a lot of excitement for John Harbaugh potentially taking the job. Now, not official as of yet, but it feels like a formality at this point, Sam. How quickly do you think he can get this thing turned around? What do you make of Harbaugh to the Giants?
Yeah, I think it's a great fit for both sides. I think the pieces are there for that Giants team to become pretty good pretty quickly. That's assuming Jackson Dart stays healthy, and I guess that's more of a question mark now than it would have been a year ago because he does play with that reckless style. He doesn't protect himself. He does seem to have a kind of slightly kamikaze style of play that is not going to do him any favors unless he modifies it to some degree. But he looks good. I mean, if you can keep him healthy, he looks like a quarterback that can absolutely be a difference maker. And he did that last year without most of his top weapons. Malik Neighbors was down for most of the year. Wan'Dale Robinson was his number 1 wide receiver for the majority of the time. So, the backfield is talented if they get Scatteraboo back. Malik Neighbors will really help the wide receiver room. You could add another body there. The tight ends have got some talent. The backfield is impressive. The offensive line moved in a significantly positive direction last year. Again, there's some work still to be done there, but it moved in a really good direction. I think that offense could be pretty good pretty quickly. And then the defense is so much more talented than it showed this season, which always kind of screams, a coaching problem. And if they can just switch the scheme, if John Harbaugh brings in a good coach, and generally he's done a very good job of that during his career of bringing in, high-quality coordinators on both sides of the ball, again, the defense could immediately take a jump forward just by shifting the scheme.
It's been an interesting, month or so with a lot of tenured coaches moving on. We're here in Salt Lake, a mile away from Rice-Eccles Stadium, where Kyle Whittingham coached Utah football for 21 years. He lives in Ann Arbor now. We already talked about Harbaugh and Mike Tomlin. After the Texans undressed the Steelers, he elects to walk away after 19 years. Now, all the reports are that he will not coach this year, and if he wants to do TV, he'll get paid very well to do that. Were you surprised to hear the Tomlin news? And then attending to the question is that the last we'll see of Aaron Rodgers playing quarterback in the NFL?
Not really that surprised given the way the game went. I think you could have predicted the last 6 weeks of the Steelers season 6 weeks before that. It's amazing how predictable they become under Tomlin. And I think that's part of the problem now is, look, he's probably going to get to 10 wins pretty much every single year, but in almost certainty that's going to result in then getting wrecked in the playoffs. And does that do you any good? And, there's some teams out there that would absolutely take that. There's some very bad football teams who would absolutely bite your arm off right now for 10 wins and a playoff exit as their following season. But for a team, who's got the kind of history and legacy that the Steelers have, eventually they're going to tire of that and they're going to want more. And the surprising element was that Tomlin walked away as opposed to was fired. Who knows, exactly how much of that was voluntary versus a sort of face-saving exercise. But it does change things because it means he probably can't take a job right away because the Steelers still own his rights. They would need to trade him for another team to hire him if they wanted him this cycle or even next cycle. It's going to be complicated for him to go somewhere else. Rodgers thing, I think he would want to play again. I don't think he wants to go out that way, but too often the NFL decides when you go out, you don't get to choose yourself. And you start looking around the NFL and you ask yourself, how many teams would be willing to let him start next year? Maybe the Vikings, based off how J.J. McCarthy was this year. He was interested in them last year. maybe they're more interested in him this year, given the McCarthy's far from a sure thing. That's kind of it. I mean, after that, you don't see too many other potential opportunities to start.
So when it comes to these job openings now, Sam, I feel, I don't know if it's a consensus, but I feel like Baltimore's probably, ready-made in the best job because of who they have under center, and obviously a culture that has bred a lot of successful football over a number of different years with both ownership and front office. Of all the candidates you've heard to land in Baltimore, who do you think is the best fit and why?
Yeah, it's tough because I think you're right. That is by far the best job out there. And I think you could see, because it's in kind of good shape, I think there's a few different coaches that would make a lot of sense. Their defense, I think, absolutely needs a shift in coach based off last season. So Brian Flores would be a really interesting hire there. Obviously, he comes with some sort of baggage that NFL teams have to be okay with, like the fact that he's not a head coach right now. I think less so because of what he's done on the field, and more so in terms of, he sued the NFL. There's stuff there that I think franchises need to be comfortable with. You also need to convince yourself that he's learned from the first time around. You listen to, Ryan Fitzpatrick spoke about this. Basically, everybody hated him by the end of that Miami tenure. Things started off well, but when the pressure came on, when things started going badly, he became a completely different guy. And by the end of that time, all of his players couldn't stand him. And that's something, the last guy that you hear players talk about in those terms is Josh McDaniels. And he, ran his first tenure off the cliff in Denver, took like a decade to go back. And everyone was like, well, maybe he's learned from his first time around. He's figured out where he went wrong. He'll do it different the next time. And then he just ran it back the next time he got a head coaching job. So I don't know if you change that kind of personality trait, that if pressure causes you to become that kind of person, I don't know if you can fix that just by going away and, redoing your stint as a defense coordinator. So Flores would be a really interesting name because I think he'd do something pretty special with that defense, but he's a risk.
Would you rather be the offensive coordinator for the Eagles or the head coach of the Browns?
I think, look, the offense coordinator to the Eagles is probably going to, have a shot of winning a Super Bowl most years at this point because that's a very good team. But I don't think that this Browns team, once they clear the Deshaun Watson contract, I think Andrew Berry is a pretty good GM. Now that comes with the caveat of somebody there pushed the button on the worst personnel move in NFL history in the Deshaun Watson trade, right? If that was Andrew Berry driving that, that's a huge black mark against him. If that was ownership driving that, then, you can excuse Andrew Berry of an awful lot, and suddenly his overall tenure looks very good. I think he's done a lot of very good personnel things, and then this one move that the team made that they're still stuck underneath. That contract is still crippling this team. It's still hanging around their salary cap like a millstone. It's still going to take some time to move away from. But they're in good shape in terms of they've got a lot of ammunition at the top of this draft. I think Andrew Berry is a good GM. So, if a coach goes in there knowing that next year might be a little bit rough, I think he could move in a good direction and not be terminally the Browns.
All right, before we get to this weekend, let me ask you about the Eagles because it's such an interesting team. They win the Super Bowl a year ago, and there are moments all year where you're like, okay, they're still really good, and then there are moments where you're like, have they ever done this before? And they're home now. What do you think they do with the OC, and what do they need to do to maybe recapture some of that magic next season?
Yeah, I think multiple offensive coordinators now struggle to make this thing work. I think you're probably starting to therefore shift some focus towards Jalen Hurts and start asking how much of this is just how he plays the game, and therefore what kind of coach do we need to come in and get the best out of him, because it might be Jalen Hurts that's sort of forcing this offense to operate in a relatively predictable manner in a way that is, just kind of hoping every now and again one of their super athletes makes a play. And that doesn't mean that's every single play with Jalen Hurts, but he does skew towards that type of offense. It's very much, one read stuff, outside ISO routes. It's not complex, progressions over the middle. And the last guy that got anything sort of substantially different from that offense, I think, was Shane Steichen, and that's going back a fair way. So, yeah, I think, look, we were speculating Mike McDaniel would be fascinating because the offense that he's run in Miami for the last few years is almost diametrically opposed to what the Eagles have been doing. And maybe that's exactly what he needs, is a guy coming in here with, like, the exact polar opposite game plan and saying, all right, this is what you're going to be working on because this is where the low-hanging fruit is for this offense. You get better at this stuff, and you go back to being, one of the best offenses in football.
All right, let's dig into this weekend's game, Sam, before I say you loose, and we'll just go in chronological order. The Bills, at last check, unless the line has moved, and when I started the show, a couple hours ago, slight favorite on the road against Denver, AFC divisional playoffs. What do you think happens in this one?
Yeah, I think close game. I think Denver's being a little bit disrespected, overlooked. I think that's a really, really good defense. It's a great home field advantage as well. Their offense is capable of putting up points, albeit not consistently. I think they're going to sneak it against the Bills.
All right, let's, like I said, we'll just kind of go in chronological order here. The Niners deserve a ton of respect. Kyle Shanahan, a lot of respect for smoke and mirrors, just getting him here. And maybe the Darnold injury changes your mind on how this is going to go. Seattle, basically a touchdown favorite at Lumen. What do you think happens tomorrow night?
Yeah, I'm too swayed by what we saw the last time these two teams met. I think that was a much more comfortable game than the scoreline showed. I think the fact that the Seahawks defense was able to basically shut down this 49ers offense, which nobody else had really done up until that point, that means I think the 49ers are going to really struggle to find a way to win because I don't think their defense can do too much against Seattle. So if their offense can't hang, I just think they're going to get beaten.
Sunday, 1 o'clock Mountain Time on ESPN, Texans, Patriots, two really good defenses at Gillette. What do you think goes down?
Yeah, really fun game. Like you said, two very good defenses. Drake May working on an MVP case. C.J. Stroud coming off actually a pretty rough game against Pittsburgh. I doubt he repeats that, but if he does, the Texans could be in some trouble. It's a great test for this New England team that has led a charmed existence in terms of their schedule, but that doesn't mean they're not a good football team. And I think this is the type of game they might show that and go there and beat this Houston team and show them that, they can beat good teams even though they haven't played many of them this year.
Final game. Chicago is one of my favorite summer cities, Sam. My favorite summer cities when it comes to this time of year. The forecast calls for almost 0 degrees, 33-mile-per-hour winds, but the Rams are still a 3.5 favorite. How do you think it goes down?
Yeah, this is what playoff football should be, though.
Sure.
Forget all this, putting everything in a dome and making it all 60 degrees and no weather. Like Bears football, Chicago outdoor football in January. Now we're talking real playoff football. I think the Rams are still built to win in that kind of conditions. I don't think that this is a fair weather football team, even though they are a dome team. I think they can absolutely play outside, and I think they're probably better on both sides of the ball. So I expect the Rams to win, and it's going to come down again, I think, to whether Caleb Williams can execute a miraculous comeback.
For sure. Sam, thanks for the time, man. Should be a lot of fun. Enjoy the weekend. Enjoy the games, and love to have you back soon, okay?
Anytime, guys. Take it easy.
Sam Monson, Pro Football Focus, at Sam Monson NFL. He hosts one of their shows called Check the Mic. League One Volleyball, Salt Lake's first professional volleyball league. The next home game is January the 22nd. Get tickets at lovbsl.com. That's lovbsl.com. Porter, I want to let you know that I agree with Sam. You're not going to agree with this because you're soft, but when it comes to playoff football, I want some say 0 degrees. I want -10, 40-mile-per-hour winds, ground and pound. Like, I'm hoping it's 3-0. That's how I believe football should be played.
Every time I have that take, you get mad at me. What's going on here?
No, I'm a football guy. I just don't know about you. I just wanted to, like, it feels to me you'd rather get like LA, Southern California dome, and if I was playing in conditions like that, I don't think I would want to be as naked as possible. I want 0 coverage. Give me as cold as possible.
I remember there was a video of the guys warming up with their shirts off a few years ago because it was like super cold.
Yeah.
I'll remind you, Spence. Christopher Kamrani can back me up on this because he was covering the game.
Indeed.
Once played a semifinal high school to a football game.
Nice.
In negative degree weather.
Was that the game you caught a touchdown in that Chris wrote about?
Of course.
Okay, that a boy. CK covered you in high school. That's pretty wild.
It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun seeing him on the sidelines.
Did you warm up shirtless prior to the game?
No.
So you're soft.
No, it was interesting. It was actually like negative 20 something that morning.
Oh.
And then by the time we kicked off, it was actually like up into the 30s or 40s. So it felt super warm.
Yeah.
It's kind of a peek into Utah weather when there's a 50-degree difference within a few hours.
One of my most unfavorite things about football practice when I played was getting up early when it was cold. I hated it.
It's tough.
Well, I wasn't into it. But when it comes to my playoff football, 0 degrees, 40-mile-per-hour winds.
Dude, I hate all the domes.
I'm with you. Soft.
Open up the roof.
Gosh.
Let the snow fall. Soldier Field last week.
Yeah.
More of that.
Yeah. No, this is football. I mean, what are we doing here? A bunch of soft, spoiled, entitled athletes. I want the worst conditions possible. To be clear, I don't want any of that. But we'll catch a break. 2 hours down, 2 hours to go. We'll get back to some football in the 5 o'clock hour. Your 4 o'clock hour, we'll talk some running Utes with our buddy Sean Mooney. Big week in the world of golf, so Paul Pugmire joins us as well. Busy show, rest of the way, Friday afternoon style. Keep it here on ESPN 700. All right, Nico Collins is officially out for the Texans. A lot of unfortunate injury news when it comes to the weekend ahead in the NFL. So we'll get back to some of that stuff coming up a little bit later on. But we haven't talked to him all year long, which is a bummer. The color analyst on our Utah men's basketball games, I should say, is our guest on a Friday. Sean Mooney. Sean, how are you, sir?
I'm good, Spence. Good to hear your voice, man. It's been a minute since we've seen each other in Vegas. It's nice to be on your show.
I know, man. It's been too long. So give me the update. How was the off season? How's everything going? What's the latest with you?
Yeah, no, things are really good. Yeah, it was a busy summer for me. My wife and I decided to take on a project that we decided, since I'm 57, I have 57 reasons not to repeat. I learned a lot about digging dirt in my backyard, and I'm staring at this pool in my backyard right now that's not quite working yet. How's your summer been? Did you get some golf in?
I did. That a guy putting a pool in. I love it. Yeah, that's kind of all I do. If I'm not working, I play golf and then just try to keep out of trouble. That's kind of the life these days. You know what I mean?
Will you teach me how to stay out of trouble, will you, please?
Oh, I don't know if you've heard. I'm not awesome at that. I'm just trying to get better as I age, Sean. But I appreciate your time today. And look, I have covered this entire thing from the day Alex took the job, preaching a tremendous amount of patience. And it's just going to take some time. You know, last year I think the SEC was the best league in the country, and this year it's the Big 12. It just is. It is a bear of a conference. So let me just get your overall thoughts so far as we sit here 8-9 overall and still yet to get a conference win. Where are we at with the development?
I mean, so I think that Alex has been really patient and tried to establish what he wants to establish. And you and I understand this. And I've got to say, I've got to go back to when we talked in Vegas. I was one of the, I'm optimistic. You know that about me.
For sure.
I thought we could be a little better than we were going to be. And the reason I thought that was because I thought we would be better defensively just with him at the realm. But and you understand this, you understand the sport. It's hard to come from the NBA and coach in college. It's quite a bit different. Even I think Alex would say, one of the big differences is their bigs and their used. We just saw that against Texas Tech. JT Toppin, they go inside out, and he's a special player. But I think we're consistently improving. I think defensively we've been getting better. But to be good in this league, you can't just be okay or good defensively. You've got to be really good. And so I think that's the biggest step up. And then really the reality is putting a roster together, it's hard. We have more of an NBA style roster, and you could argue that we don't have great rim protection, and that's maybe making a difference for us. But I mean, I would say that Alex would say this, that it's probably even been a little harder than he thought.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I wonder, and I'm honestly asking just to ask, but how whole is the team right now? Like, does he have every player at his disposal when it comes to the, just the lineup and rotation?
Oh, no, we're not whole at all.
Yeah.
So obviously Jacob Patrick hasn't played for a little bit. This is the kid from Germany, really good shooter. I think he was averaging 10 points a game. We haven't seen him for 6 or 7 games. A lower leg injury is what we've been told. We really miss him because, when you have a shooter on the floor, it really helps because the defender stays with them and your spacing's a little bit better. And then we saw Lucas, the kid from Spain. Oh, my goodness, the 10 minutes we had, Spence, I mean, this kid passes it at a high level. And then he got hurt in the BYU game. Oh. So there's another one out. Yeah, he got hurt. So basically he's got, I'm not supposed to talk about what type of injury, but he's got an injury that he's going to be out for 4 weeks. And it was just one of those basketball plays, right? Okay. So mid-season edition. And then obviously we missed Chapa, the kid from Syracuse. He's no longer with the team. And, Jakai was going to be, I think, a really important addition for us, obviously athletically, and he hasn't played a lot. So I would say that, yeah. And then obviously Baba got hurt right at the beginning of the season. This is the big from Western Kentucky. So there are 5 players right there that I talked about that would have been helpful. 2 of them, now we just, obviously you don't know until you get them. But, yeah, we're not fully loaded. And our freshmen, I think, are really picking up the slack. Obamate's been really good. Kendall Sanders has been really good. They both listen and they try, and they're defending. Those two are defending at a high level. So, yeah, we're not 100%.
So that's really good insight, because I knew about a couple of those injuries, but I didn't know about all of them. Of all of those players you just named, of course, you referenced the Syracuse kid is gone. Are we close to getting any of them back at this point?
Yeah, we're not going to get Lucas back. Not for probably 4 weeks. Hope, you never know, but you want the best for the kid. And Jacob, we're not sure. He hasn't been on the road the last couple times that we've been on the road the last couple weeks. And we're not really sure what's going on. And we miss him. You know this. Anytime you have a shooter or a playmaker, like it looks like Lucas is going to be a high-level playmaker, you're going to really miss him. And then Jakai hasn't played a lot, and obviously Chapa's not there. So, no, I don't think we're going to see him anytime soon. You're going to see what we have right now. And obviously, like you just said, the Big 12, the top 6 teams are better than any other top 6 teams, in my opinion, in any league. I think the Big 10 top to bottom is better than we are. And it doesn't get any easier for us, even though we're playing TCU tomorrow. And I think TCU is 1-3. It's a Jamie Dixon-led team. That's their coach. And they defend at a high level. Like, they're the 20th best. Like, they only allow 97.7 points per 100 possessions. They're really good.
Oof, man. It's really interesting that you brought up Lucas, okay? Because I don't know much about him. But, when Alex put him in against BYU, I was like, okay, wait a second. Who is this kid? Because you could tell right away that he just he knocked down that 3. And I'm like, that's a beautifully aesthetically pleasing, fundamentally sound jumper. And then he's making these reads and these passes. And I'm like, well, wait a second. Start him and play him like 35 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, he popped in just a few minutes to me, Sean, against BYU in a way that really, really struck me. So you referenced that he's hurt, which sucks. I didn't know that. I wonder why he wasn't playing against Texas Tech. But I think Al's got something with this kid. Let's dig in here a little bit. What do you know about him? What type of player is he?
Yeah, he's exactly the kind of player you and I both like. I think that you are, because you are a guard, you like the playmaker, and you could just see the playmaker in him. So he made an off one hand, off the bounce pass diagonal to KD. It should have been a 3, just missed it, and then made another pass to KD on the baseline. Same thing, kind of like that old John Stockton pass. Mm-hmm. And if you saw what I saw, he's so settled. So you can see how relaxed he is. So he's playing in the Spanish league at one of the higher levels, and I think you and I both believe that league may be, Spain just in general, may be some of the best basketball in the world.
For sure.
He seems comfortable, and that 3 he hit, I agree. The kid can shoot it. He's 6'5". He's got good size. I think he's a really nice addition. It's a shame that we're not going to see him for the bulk of the conference season.
Okay, all right. I'm actually feeling a little bit better after this conversation. I hate that all these guys are hurt, but I'll just tell you how it is. I'm watching these games, and I'm like, they don't have a chance. It feels like every night they're like up against it. So, right. As we dig into what is possible with 5, if not 6 rotational pieces out, like where are you at right now with your confidence level that I'll just say this team can keep getting better and hopefully, sneak up on a couple of teams in conference play?
Yeah, go to the BYU game, which is always an anomaly, right? Because it's more than likely going to be close. Now, obviously, they worked this at the end of last year. They were really good offensively, and we weren't great defensively. But we've been close, right? And but close doesn't count, unfortunately. The only thing that matters is what's inside that score on your score sheet playing golf, right? You don't need to tell anyone about anything else. It's either a 4 or a 6. Mm-hmm. We've been close. We've been having some double bogeys. I think if we could break through confidence-wise, it would really help us. But I don't expect this. I want us to win as many games as we can. I just think this league is it's really heavy. Like, we're going to obviously play TCU tomorrow. This team they've been really close. They've actually, I think they lost to Michigan by 4, but they beat Wisconsin. And they've got a pretty heavy team in terms of depth. They go 8-9. And then we play Kansas State at Kansas State, Spence, and Kansas State and Utah have the same record, but we're going to be playing them there. So, my hope is that we can win a couple, and maybe that'll give us the confidence that we need. But right now, defensively, I don't think we're good enough, and we definitely don't have rim protection to help us maybe get better.
So when I watch the team, it feels like they have two really good isolation lead guard types with Terrence Brown and Don McHenry. Good one-on-one individual lead guard ball in hand guys. But there's a little bit of redundancy between the two of them, right? Like they play in a pretty similar way. Don can shoot a little bit better from the outside than Terrence, but let's hone in on the guard line because they're by far the two leading scorers. How have you seen these two evolve and grow, and what do you see as far as their ability to play off of each other?
Yeah, I think Don really likes it being off the ball. This is my opinion. Watching him, he's enjoyed that. I mean, the biggest thing with TB is he's a natural-born scorer. That's what he does. And really what Coach Jensen has been asking him to do is to not try to score on the first side, right? To wait till you get a second or third side attack. And the offense that we're running is very NBA-oriented, so it's often 4 out, 1 in, or 5 out. And you're going to get a second or third side drive from either of those guys. If they don't get a shot, they get a lot of corner threes. It was really nice to see KD hit a couple of corner threes in the Texas Tech game. He's needed them. But they play off each other well. The problem is they're our leading scorers. KD's our next scorer. I think he's 12.8, and that probably went up after his game. But teams are loading up on them, Spence. And when they load up on them, it makes it a little harder. Sometimes it speeds us up, and we're not quite as effective in points per possession when we go first side. I think Don's got a little more in his bag than TB in terms of what you said. He shoots a little better from outside, and he's got some pretty nasty, shifty side-to-side stuff. TB is a little more north-south than Don is. But, yeah, that was the question at the beginning of the year. These guys are both scorers. Can they do other things?
So when it comes to, it was interesting. We talked to you about this last year. I'm not saying that Craig didn't like Keanu Dawes, but when the coaching change was made, like Keanu was given more of an opportunity to show what he could be, and a double-double in the tournament. Great game against UCF, 21-15. He had 15-11 against ASU, 18-10 against Arizona. So we started to see that there was something there, and I think a lot of people were excited that he decided that he wanted to come back. On the season, about 12 points, 8 boards, 70% from the line, 58% from the floor. Of course, the athleticism is still there. Has he been what you expected? Has he been better? Do we need a little bit more from Keanu Dawes?
I really do think that KD is the one player in this squad that has a future. Now, I want them all. We all want them to have success. And TB is obviously a high volume scorer. KD his ceiling's really high. He has not shot it well from the three this year. And to his credit, he doesn't change his body language. He doesn't change. And the coaches are constantly telling him to shoot it. It was really good to see him have a 4 for 6 from the 3 game because he hasn't had that this year, Spence. Otherwise, maybe the biggest knock on KD is starting a little slow in the first half and then having a good second half. But from a rebounding standpoint, he's by far our best rebounder, and he's a next-level rebounder, in my opinion, and he's gotten a lot better defensively. Like, he's now defending often the other team's best player. You saw him on A.J. Debonsa, and he's actually a good defender for A.J. because he's similar lengthwise, and he moves really well. And, yeah, Spence, he's definitely getting better. And you can see the coaches are so great with him because when he misses, it's never, we didn't want you to shoot that. Keep shooting it. And if he keeps shooting them and he can start making threes, it's going to really be good for us.
You referenced, rim protection and, defense in the painted area, as Hubie Brown liked to call it. But let me ask you about Okonkwo, who at times, and certainly against the BYU, and the BYU game was great on the glass. And then I just noticed that he kind of fades and drifts a little bit. He's a likable kid when you hear him interviewed. But is it lack of experience? Is it lack of focus? Like where are we at right now with Okonkwo, who again at times is a beast on the boards?
Yeah, no, you're right. No, so yeah, he's a great interviewer. You know, he's a very good tennis player. You got to ask him that if you ever interview him. His brother plays tennis at Ohio State. He's got a great voice. He's one of the. We have a quiet team, Spence. They don't talk a lot. He's one of the good voices out there in terms of a little bit louder. And yeah, when he's good, we really need him, right? So when he can get 12 rebounds a game, it makes a difference. And he does kind of fade, and that's not uncommon for players, right? But you got to kind of fight through it. And if he can be the kind of player that can deliver 20 minutes a game and get 10 rebounds, and 4 of those are offensive rebounds, and be a bit of a defensive presence. I mean, this block he had on AJ, you know, he came to the table afterward and someone asked him, and he's like, well, it was either that or I was going to be on SportsCenter. And he got lucky. I mean, that was great timing. But yeah, when he plays well, when he plays with the energy he's known to play with, it really helps us a lot.
All right, let's. I did want to talk to you about the BYU game because I'll just tell you at least how I saw it after the Arizona game. I heard Al say, "Well, I went into the locker room and told our team like, hey, 1 or 2 plays here that we could have won that game." And I'm like, "Buddy, like, love you, but no, like I didn't." But the BYU game, like. It was a combination of so many missed wide open threes. And then can we get a rebound down the stretch, please? Like that was a winnable basketball game for the Utes. Credit BYU coming on the road, hostile environment, getting the win. But what was it like to watch that game? What stood out most courtside?
Yeah, it was really great. And you're right, man. I mean, you got to give Richie Saunders credit because he doesn't have a great first half. And he's the guy who knows that game, understands the game better than anyone out there. Maybe Kaba because he's played on both sides. And he really wanted it. And we just literally didn't block him out. I think he got 6 offensive rebounds in that game. And then we really did a good job, I thought, of flooding or doubling AJ and trying to take that away. But I personally, it was great being courtside, and we were so close. It would have been way more fun, Spence, if we would have gotten a shot off at the end of the game, right? So this is a great example of where TB, and Al doesn't call a timeout on purpose, and then TB gets just a little sped up, right? And Kaba plays a great double, doesn't foul him, and he goes out of bounds. It would have been great to get a shot off, but really I think the thing in that game, the difference in that game is Rob Wright. Because Rob Wright is, and obviously Richie Saunders is the reason they won with the offensive rebound and the way he shot it. But Rob Wright is special for that team. And I don't see them with a backup to Rob Wright. Dawson Baker no longer plays with them. And he was a really good kid that could come in and playmate. It was a great game. And I hope, Spence, that we can defend like that, and actually have a chance when we go to BYU, because you know how hard it is to play there.
For sure. And I did want to follow up with this because, as you and I both know, being from a generation where the Huntsman Center was tough to even get a ticket to, things have changed. And it's been tough for a number of years to get fans to head over there. And look, I know there was a good amount of BYU Blue, and that's fine. It's their right to show up and cheer on their team. But for our listeners out there that maybe have not gone up to a game, like here's the fan that I don't want to hear from anymore. Why can't we be better at basketball, yet I won't show up to it? Like, don't complain if you're not going to the game. And don't complain about BYU fans being there because you can buy the tickets first, okay? So there are a lot of people that wish Utah basketball was back where it used to be, but they refuse to support the team by going to games. Just help us understand what sort of difference it makes, not just for a game in a vacuum, but also to be able to sell the program and recruit players if this community would actually show up to watch this team.
Oh, it would make such a difference. I mean, so the Muss was there, like in full force. They were top to bottom, Spence. They had both of their sections completely full. And just to give you an example, they're basically talking crap to the other team, and obviously it's BYU, so it's even more fun. But it was going back and forth early, and just the energy in the building from a fan standpoint, from a player standpoint, from a commentator standpoint, it's next to none. And I know, like I would say, the Spectrum and Utah State has had the best basketball top to bottom, and then I'm not saying that lightly. And then the Marriott Center right now is really good. Our fans, I mean, if they can come out, it helps the kids so much. You can't imagine, if you're listening out there, I know you are fans, come to the game. Enjoy some of the best basketball in the country. I mean, like you just said, Spence, the Big 12's as good as it's get. We've got Houston, Iowa State coming. Like, it's unbelievable, the basketball that's being played at the Huntsman Center.
No doubt. I do want to ask you about BYU because you had a front row seat. And, you know, it's interesting you referenced Rob Wright because I was watching the TCU BYU game last night. And look, AJ is insane. He's going to be an awesome pro. You know, like the data is in, the measurables are what they are. He's built like an NBA guy. He plays the right way. I've been wildly impressed with this kid and excited to see what he does next level. And we could go down the roster. Certainly, you referenced Richie, who also is an NBA guy. And I think a testament to Kevin's ability to develop, because I didn't think he was as a freshman. But Rob makes them go. Rob Wright makes them go. Like, he is the guy. He's the engine. AJ's talent is what it is. Caba's a beast. We know that. He played here. Richie's improved. But I think their key to a March run is their point guard, Rob Wright. What do you think?
No question, Spence. I mean, like, so I've loved Rob since he's been in the league. He played at Baylor, and I got to watch Cleveland State play Baylor, and they did the best job on him last year. His pedigree is impeccable. I think Rob Wright's a pro, but I think personally you flood Rob Wright, so you do whatever you can to get the ball out of Rob Wright's hands, and then in my opinion, if you can put him in defensive action, so he's working a little harder, because again, I think maybe the one weakness that BYU has is I don't know who their backup point guard is. Is AJ their point guard? I mean, he can do it. Like, he's amazing. But yeah, I think Rob Wright is a ginormous key for BYU's success. All
right, before I say you lose, TCU. Let's see the line here: 12.5. TCU's favored by 12.5. Like I said, I watched them the other night against BYU, and that's not a bad team. I don't know that there is a bad team in this conference that Utah is going to be able to steal a win from, but high noon coming up. So let's see if we can get people there tomorrow at the Huntsman Center. And again, heavy underdog. So give us a preview, Utah TCU tomorrow here in Salt Lake. Sean? Hello, Sean. Hello, Sean. Well, admittedly, that was a tough question. Preview Utah TCU was a tough question. Is he still there?
I think he dropped.
He dropped.
Officially.
All right, now you're giving me the preview.
Like you said, TCU's a tough team. I think the key for Utah, especially TCU's got some length defensively, it can't be all one-on-one. Their offense, between Keanu, between Terrence Brown, guys that are tops in the Big 12 in scoring, I think both of them are top 10. They need to find something offensively that's not just those guys getting to the rim, getting their own.
Yeah. Both those guys are capable isolation, lead guard, ball in hand scorers, but they play a lot alike. You know, if you look at TCU, their losses on the year, a really weird one out of the gates to New Orleans, but they almost beat Michigan. They lost to Notre Dame. They barely lost to Kansas and Arizona. They've only lost to they just lost to BYU last night, but this is not a bad basketball team. They've got a Toulson on the roster, Tanner Toulson, whose dad, Andy Toulson, was like my favorite college player, played at BYU back in the day. But this is a tough conference, and if you're looking for something to do tomorrow at noon, Utah TCU. Oh, UVU transfer. That's right. The Toulson kid played there. So Utah TCU at noon tomorrow at the Huntsman Center. I didn't realize that many players were hurt. So according to Sean, we've got 5, if not 6, main rotational pieces out. The Lucas Longarita kid, the kid that just came over here from Spain, I'm telling you, in 10 minutes of watching him play against BYU, you could tell that Al's got something there. But as Sean just let us know, he's out for a month, so that's unfortunate. The process is going to be a long one for Alex Jensen. Of course, that's our guy. We'll cheer for him as the Runnin' Utes make their way through Big 12 play. All right, we'll catch a break. A big week in the world of golf, believe it or not, as Brooks Koepka is back on the PGA Tour. Some other players have announced that they're going to stay with Live Golf. So we'll get the latest on the world of golf coming up on the other side with our buddy Paul Pugmire. Friday Drive. Good to have you along for the ride right here on ESPN 700.
Ooh.
Do you wish you had enough leverage to ask your current employer for $500 million, or else you were going to take your talents elsewhere?
I did last week.
How'd that go?
Yeah, I got denied.
Well, you're still here. Bryson DeChambeau apparently wants $500 million to play for Live Golf. I called that Paul Pugmire money. Paul, happy Friday, sir. How are you?
I'm missing my 500 mil, man, and I'm upset about it.
Goodness gracious. Well, I guess if there's one guy, and look, my opinion on Bryson is well documented. I know that you and I disagree on that, and that's fine.
Yeah.
If there's one guy that could ask for this based off of the brand he's built, it might be Bryson. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. He is the one who could potentially get that done with these guys at in the Saudi government, the Public Investment Fund. But it is the Saudi government. It ultimately is the upper reaches of the Saudi government that ultimately will make the decisions, and certainly that control the Public Investment Fund. But yeah, it's kind of a staggering thing, isn't it?
It is. It is. And of course, last time you and I spoke, we were alluding to the potential of Brooks Koepka returning to the PGA Tour, and now it is official. It's called a returning member program. Okay, so we'll get to potentially what could be next. Brian Rolap, again, friend of the show, I think has done a good job of kind of traversing this space to not just allow Brooks back, but ultimately providing a path for any of the other players to come back as well. And you and I discussed what could potentially be a little bit of a tricky reception from his PGA Tour peers, because look, there's no other way to spin it. Brooks went and got a massive amount of money, and he is going to, lose some potential earnings moving forward. But, Wyndham Clark Wyndham is a little bit of a wild card from time to time, but I don't know that he's going to be received entirely with open arms. How have you kind of digested this story?
There are so many pieces to it, and it starts with a question that is forced upon us by all that transpired in the last week, and that's Jay who? Jay Monahan, still the commissioner on paper, and certainly in charge of the PGA when all of this was going down, just completely set aside. Listen, Brian Rolap, he is the sheriff. He is in charge. If anybody has any questions, you can just step outside, because he showed this week that he is running the show. I think what he did with navigating all of the various pitfalls associated with Koepka, I think he did a masterful job. I think Rolap did this as well as could be done, which is not to say that there won't be some dissent or there won't be some ruffled feathers or some scratched eyeballs along the way. There will be. And, you read carefully what Wyndham Clark was saying, and it's pretty tepid taken in totality, and he is very quick to say that he likes Brooks Koepka and is glad Koepka's back. I think the way Rolap managed this is so good, and there are two things that I think are most important. Number one, Koepka gets no special treatment in coming back to the tour. He does not get to stand on his status of the player he was before he left. He will have to earn his, other than getting to play, which is no small thing, but he has to play his way into the elevated events, the signature events. He has to play his way into Eastlake. He has to play his way into everything for which he is not already fully qualified, which is to say the majors. And then the other thing, which is vitally important in the PGA Tour ecosphere, he does not take away a start from anybody else who has qualified through all the other means available to qualify for the tour. Meaning, if the tournament has normally 120 spots, if Koepka is in the field, it will have 121. It does not take away a start for anybody else. I think that is crucial and key and probably the most important piece of the whole puzzle.
So Koepka's statement when he took the opportunity to go to Live Golf was the potential of being closer to his family and spending more time with his family. His statement returning to the PGA Tour also includes that he wants to be closer to his family and spend more time with his family. What are we doing here? I mean, we know that this is really all about, the checks that are Look, I'm glad that he's back. I want to be clear, but we just need to call this what it is, yeah?
Totally. I think in sports, in politics, in business, in all walks, whenever somebody says, I'm taking this action for more time with my family, it's code for I don't want to talk about it. People in all walks hide behind that explanation, that reason. I think it never holds true. There are 100 ways to spend more time with your family in the current situation, and you either do it or you don't. Tony Finau is a really great example of somebody who does it. He misses tournaments right now. He doesn't do a lot of fanfare about it. He just simply misses tournaments when it conflicts with things that his kids do. Phil Mickelson, a complicated man by every measure, and which means he's got some unsavory things. But this is a guy who told the USGA straight up, regardless of where I'm in contention on Sunday in the U.S. Open, regardless of what hole I'm on, if the beeper I'm carrying says my wife goes into labor, I'm gone.
So the return – oh, sorry, Paul, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so it's real for some people, but mostly it's just a smokescreen.
So ultimately, the returning member program allows live golfers who have been away from the PGA Tour for at least 2 years and who have won the Players' Championship or one of the 4 majors since 2022, which, by the way, doesn't make DJ eligible for this. And DJ announced that he is gone. He's out of sight, out of mind, which is such a bummer because he was so entertaining to watch at his peak. But the other competitors eligible to return under the program, Bryson DeChambeau, who we've already talked about, he's announced he is coming back and he's asking for more money. John Rahm announces that he's going back to live, as has Cameron Smith. Those are the other 3 players. But here's the interesting part, all right? So Brian Rolap, who's a very smart guy and does not suffer fools easily, said, quote, "This is a one-time defined window and is not a precedent for future situations. Once the door closes, there's no promise that this path will be available again." What do you make of that?
Most important part is no promise, which leaves the door open that it could happen if the situation warrants it and that it would be to the benefit of the PGA Tour to do so. I think Rolap, again, was masterful in how he walked the tightrope in every aspect of this, and that's one good example of it. It says, okay, you got to make a decision for now, and you can't count on it happening again, but Rolap left himself some maneuverability.
Now, like I said, we've heard officially with Bryson and Rahm and Cam Smith that they are not going to take this path back. Do you? I mean, I'm asking you questions that are impossible to know. Do you think any other players outside of the three that fall under this returning member program will kick the tires to see what they have to do to get back on tour?
Yeah, I do. I think they will. I don't know exactly who they are, but we've talked about this, and it's been talked about in a lot of other forums. We all know this, that when you go to live, you disappear. And, people who are used to playing in front of big crowds, playing consequential golf in front of big crowds on TV, they don't like to disappear. And I think that, they've kind of all figured that out. And they're going to be people trying to shake the bushes and figure out if there is a way for them to come back. Interesting little side note on this point that got lost in all the noise this week. Pat Perez, bit of a journeyman player, 3-time winner earlier in his career on the PGA Tour, but not a household name, not a big star. He went to live, and he has figured out a way to come back to the tour himself. He's 48 years old. Or maybe 49. He's preparing to play on the Champions Tour, and just very quietly, under the radar, coming back and trying to correct what he did.
So let me move over here because Brooks, and he was careful, he was measured here, but you and I have discussed the fact that simply the live golf format and the way that they kind of present their tournaments is not conducive to a consistent enough, I'll just say, training for, the majors if these guys want to come back and play on tour. And Brooks was asked about ultimately the progress of live golf. And again, he was gentle here, but he said, quote, "I think we all hoped it would have been a little bit further along than it is, and that's no secret." What do you think he meant by that?
Well, it speaks. Yeah, I saw that. It still makes me laugh. It speaks to the situation with the World Golf Rankings points, which never has been resolved. But more than that, it speaks to the competitive nature of it, which it's not, simply just not deeply competitive enough. And therefore, the fact that the players who are on live, as we just discussed, end up falling off the radar. Nobody sees them. Nobody hears from them. Nobody cares. It's not consequential golf. And they know that now. And I think it was pretty easy to see in the beginning that it wouldn't be consequential golf. But I didn't have the blinders of $100 million in front of my eyes either. So, but it's pretty clear now.
So let me move over to Bryson. Let's unpack this for a minute. So last month, Bryson gave an interview on a podcast where he said Koepka's departure, quote, throws some unique things in his negotiations with LIV. Bryson is entering his last year under contract with LIV Golf. We already talked about the ask, which reportedly is $500 million. Must be good to be Bryson. But here's the other thing he said, quote, "And look, I mean, as I've said all along, I want to do this. I want to grow team golf across the globe. But it has to be right, and there are a lot of things that have to be done in order for it to be right. Things have to change. Things have to improve." That's word salad. That's nebulous, mundane word salad that means nothing. But what does he mean when he says, "I want to grow team golf across the globe"?
Well, you're so right. It's word salad. It's kind of hard to figure out in there what he really means. We've talked about how one of the biggest takeaways I have from when I visited the LIV event in Las Vegas is that the team golf is pointless. There is no connective tissue, zero, between the team and its audience, the fans. We all know the connective tissue we feel for the Utes. We know the connective tissue we feel for the Jazz, for the Mammoth, etc. There's nothing for these LIV teams. I think LIV knows this too, and they signaled this week that they know it when their newest franchise announcement was a team in South Korea, based in South Korea, that is made up of South Korean players. They're starting to realize that there has to be a connective tissue in the teams, but it's too late. I think that ship has sailed. Team golf isn't going to happen except at the Ryder Cup and President's Cup.
I've got a rant. This is a non sequitur here, and I'm asking because I'm genuinely curious. Once upon a time, it feels like Anthony Kim was talked about as a potential generational talent. He is going to play for Liv again this year. I don't know that there's a place for him on tour. But what happened here? Tell me about this story. And am I incorrect? Remembering that at one point he was talked about like generationally special.
You are spot on. He was playing in the Ryder Cup and winning points and doing so decisively and flamboyantly at 22 or 23. He was a terrific player and just exuded swagger and charisma. And for whatever reason, and I don't know what it is, but his personal life fell off the boat and he absolutely disappeared. It was a self-imposed exile, but he disappeared. And he came back with Liv a couple years ago and shows flashes. He showed flashes of it a couple of weeks ago in a play-in event for this coming Liv season where he shot a 63 on Sunday and got the third and final spot to get a spot on a team in Liv this year. He has not shown that he can sustain the high levels of play, but there's no question that in his early 20s, he was looked on, and he was a potential generational player. Apparently couldn't handle the public life.
There is an event we should talk about because the PGA Tour is actually opened, right? The Sony Open in Hawaii. So we actually do have a PGA Tour tournament going on right now at the Wailea Country Club in Honolulu. I wish I was there. But
yes, you do.
I do very, very much. What I always like to ask you about the track and the tournament, just kind of educate us on this tournament, the Sony Open in Hawaii.
First of all, can I just say, consequential golf, I can breathe again.
For sure.
So good to see these guys back pegging it and letting it fly. So they're at the Wailea Country Club, which is one of the 3 longest tenured host venues on the PGA Tour calendar. They have been around hosting PGA Tour events for a long time. It gives it deep connection and legacy, ties to the legacy of the PGA Tour. It's wonderful that this week Vijay Singh is playing in the tournament. He is a former champion, but like 20-some years ago, he was a champion at this event. The Wailea Country Club is on the shore in Honolulu. It's right there on the ocean. It gets a lot of wind. It is the layout of the course is comparatively short. It's a par 70. There's only 2 par 5s on the course, and they both are just totally gettable. And the course features dog legs on nearly every par 4. There's hardly a straight par 4 on the golf course. A bit of a parkland history to it, and then it's got one identifying signature feature that's quirky but kind of fun. On the hole, it's number 16 for the tour, number 7 for the members. As you're going toward the ocean and looking out over the ocean, they have put 4 palm trees angled such that they form a W in back of the green, W for Wailea Country Club. It's just kind of a quirky thing that's always been fun and marked this event on the tour. The Sony has a great history, and it's just one of the really historic, iconic events on the PGA Tour, but you have to ask the question whether it can survive the new schedule changes, and I think that's likely no.
Not to be hyperbolic about an overdramatic story, but this feels like a big year for Tony in a way that, he just at one point we all thought he was on. And look, I know this game is so cruel, and I know this sport is just so difficult, but at one point, his career arc was potentially for him to become one of the top-tier golfers in the world, and he still is a top-tier brand. He just announced a partnership with Jordan, which is awesome. But round 1, I'm looking at our guy at 6 over par, which is basically 9th to last. So It's going to take a miracle for him to make the cut. Probably not going to happen. So in a vacuum, like your thoughts on what we've seen from him so far, but I'm more interested in your opinion on just what sort of pressure there is on Tony this year.
There is pressure on Tony. You are exactly right. He had that status. He was a Ryder Cupper, a President's Cupper, and no longer is. He was among the top players in the world and no longer is. He was competing for majors and hasn't done that in a while. Keep in mind, 2019, when Tiger won his fifth Masters, Tony was paired with Tiger in the final group at Augusta on Sunday. Tony's not in that environment anymore. You put that together with his Michael Jordan deal this week, and yes, there is pressure on him to come back and perform. Now, he's coming back from injury, and there's every reason to believe he's healthy now, which is great, but it's hard to come back from injury. You've got to retrain your body. Sometimes injury changes your body, and you've got to figure out how to deal with that. I'm not deeply concerned at his really crummy day yesterday. No, there's no chance in the world that he makes the cut. I'm not deeply concerned. It's going to take a little while for him, I think, to get back into the rhythm following his health issues. If we are having this conversation in March or certainly April, then at that point, it's a problem.
All right. Scottie Scheffler. He's good at golf. Just breaking news. U.S. Open victory away from becoming the 7th golfer to win the Slam. We saw Rory do it this last year, only the 6th. So Scheffler, PGA Open Championship in 2025. He's got 2 green jackets. He just needs the U.S. Open to capture the Slam. What are the chances he gets that done based off of the venue? And it's going to be Shinnecock Hills, I believe, in Southampton, New York in June. Do you think Scotty's got it in him?
Totally. First of all, he's not the only one in this boat. Jordan Spieth is a PGA championship away from the Slam as well. But they are worlds apart right now in their current level of performance, their current level of play. Absolutely, Scotty can win at Shinnecock. And the reason for that is Shinnecock absolutely demands a respectful, conservative approach to it. You cannot attack Shinnecock. It will kick you back so hard, you'll never get back up. And I was there at the U.S. Open when it last was at Shinnecock when Brooks Koepka won it. And you simply have to play to the middle of the greens at Shinnecock. And that's what Scotty does better than anybody else in the world right now. It's what Tiger did better than anybody. It's what Nicklaus did better than anybody. It's what Hogan did better than anybody. Are we seeing a pattern? And that's what Shinnecock demands. Scotty has to be considered among a small group of people who actually can win on one of the most demanding penal courses in the world.
So Rory is in the Middle East. He's in the Dubai Invitational. He's going to stay in Dubai. He isn't scheduled to play in the U.S. until next month at the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am. He played in 16 tour events last year. The projections are that's going to be about the same. What can he do, or what do you think he will do for an encore after capturing such a rare achievement a year ago?
I don't know. But what is there? I don't know. Head-to-head with Scotty coming down the stretch of a major and beating him, that would be cool. Look, we all know when Rory has his game, he can beat everybody, Scotty included. He doesn't always have his A game. There's a difference between Rory's A game and C game that I think is a bigger delta than you have with a lot of other players. But when he's on, man, it is a thing of beauty, something to behold. I don't know what you do next after that. He said he wants to win national championships, and that's where he's going to focus. So go win a few, Rory. According
to, well, I would say just sentiment and then the data, the 2 best golfers in the world are Scotty and Rory. Tommy Fleetwood is at 3, and you can throw whoever you want in there. Ludwig, Victor Hovland, Cam Young, Xander. Who's the most likely? If we're talking about the 3 best golfers in the world at the end of this year, and we're just going to admit that the 2 of them are Rory and Scotty, who's most likely to be 3?
The problem is with the ranking system, we have to look to data golf to really answer that question. I think this conversation needs Bryson DeChambeau. It's fine with me, Spencer, that you're not a big fan. I get it. There's lots of reasons not to be, but boy, howdy, that guy can play the game. and he has to be in that conversation. Otherwise, the numbers don't lie on Fleetwood, and I do think that Ludwig Oberg needs to be in the conversation. I think Tyrell Hatton needs to be in the conversation.
All right. The golfer most likely to win their first major this year. Okay, I've got some odds in front of me. Tommy is on the list because he actually won last year's tour championship, so he has that monkey off his back. Any conversation like this has to, in my opinion, has to include Ludwig, Russell Henley, Cam Young, Victor Hovland, and any direction. Golfer most likely to break through and win his first major this year.
First of all, this conversation has to be held within the context of the top 20 in the world. Just year after year, decade after decade, major champions come from the top 20 in the world. That being said, you gave the correct list. And so within that list, you gave, who do you like? I really like Ludwig Oberg. I just like the way he plays. I like the way he steps up and hits it, and then he walks after the shot. No frills, no fluff. He just hits the shot. Plus, he's really good. That's always fun to watch.
All right, one more question, then we'll find out what's coming up on the show and what's going on with the local golf scene. I'll call them comeback candidates. You referenced one. Jordan Spieth gave a really good interview. I can't remember where I saw it. But once upon a time, Spieth was next. And it wasn't just because we could see that he had game. It's because that he was winning tournaments and he was winning majors. So comeback candidates, you can phrase this however you want. I'm going to put Spieth on the list. My guy, Max Homa, who was ranked 5th in the world in April of 2023, and he's currently 140th. He has changed coaches. Mark Blackburn is back with him as a swing coach. Ricky Fowler sponsors exemptions to get into the field last year, which people weren't thrilled about, but tied for 6th with the FedEx and 7th at the BMW. He's in all 8 signature events in the Players' Championship. So I'll throw those 3. The other, I've got odds in front of me. Again, Nick Dunlap and Luke Clanton are 2 other names, but most likely candidate to have a great comeback and a good year this year on tour is who, Paul?
Can I start with what I want?
Yes.
I want Tony.
Oh yeah, I should have thrown Tony in there. Yeah.
Yeah. And he would be a comeback. Totally. I mean, good land. He's barely in the top 100 of the official world golf rankings right now. And that's not the Tony Finau we all love and know. And so I really want Tony. But the one that I think is a real candidate is Luke Clanton. I think Clanton is just a superlative talent, and we're going to see great things from him. It could well start this year.
I lied. I got to ask you one more thing because, when Tiger Woods speaks, Tiger Woods is still Tiger Woods. So he is making his way back. 7th back surgery in October. Replaced a disc in his lower back. He said early this month that in December, he started chipping and putting. And then at the TGL match this week, he said he's hitting short irons now. The Masters is April 9th. And Tiger and the Masters, like how big are you allowing your imagination to get about what this year could look like for Tiger Woods?
Well, I definitely will want to see it. I definitely will watch no matter what he does. I don't think his body can withstand the rigors of 72 holes without a cart. It's that simple. I just don't see it happening. Now, I've said this 100 times. The landscape is strewn with the dead and rotting carcasses of people who have bet against Tiger Woods. I don't want to be that guy, but it's so hard to see at this point.
It is. All right, Paul, what's coming up on the show and what's the latest around the local golf scene?
There's something really interesting and a little bit remarkable going on at Copper Rock in Hurricane tomorrow morning. They are having a qualifier, a 36-hole qualifier for 2 players to get a spot in the Epson Tour event that is happening at Copper Rock in May. The tournament organizers are given 2 sponsors exemptions. They chose to turn it into a tournament. It's unusual and very, very cool. Utah Golf Radio will be at Copper Rock in the morning. We're going to be talking with some players, with some organizers. We're going to be going into this very cool qualifier event that is taking place at Copper Rock.
Paul, thank you, sir. Appreciate the time. Have a great weekend ahead, and we're inching closer and closer. We'll get there at some point, yeah?
Keeping my fingers crossed, friend.
Indeed, indeed. All right, Paul Pugmire, check out Utah Golf Radio tomorrow morning, brought to you today by the Utah Auto Expo. Started today, goes through Monday at the Mountain America Expo Center. Go to autoshowutah.com. All right, 3 hours down, 1 hour to go. The final hour of the program for both the day and the week comes your way next on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700. You know, I do have the option of not putting a piece of beef jerky in my mouth 30 seconds before I come back on air. I just reinforcing it to myself because for some reason I continue to do that. Hello, how are you? Happy Friday. The 5 o'clock hour of the program on a Friday afternoon starts right now. Happy Friday to you. Congratulations. You made it. Weekend time. Showed up, did the things, and you have earned a weekend, and you've earned some football, man. I'll tell you what, we got some good football coming up this weekend. Tomorrow starts a 3-day stretch of excellent football in both pro and college football. The Bills-Broncos will get us going tomorrow at 2:30. That game's on CBS. As of now, the Bills are still a slight favorite, even though the Broncos are a home team. And I believe they won more home games than any team in the NFL this year. A lot of Bronco fans in our market. You can hear the Niners and the Seahawks game coming up on our station at 6 o'clock tomorrow. That game is on Fox. Sam Darnold is expected to play, but is dealing with an oblique injury. George Kittle, of course, is out, and sadly is out for a long time with that torn Achilles. There were some rumors that Fred Warner was going to try to give it a go. He will not. So Warner, Bosa, a lot of the defensive players from the Niners on the sideline. Saw these two teams play just a matter of weeks ago. Seattle got the better of them, and Seattle is a full 7-point favorite at home. So should be a good divisional matchup. It was 13-3. Of course, Seattle's defense is one of the best in all of pro football, but the best in all of pro football will be playing on Sunday in New England as the Texans, who have never advanced past this round of the playoffs, are a slight underdog on the road against the Patriots. So I believe we're getting 3 points right now in that game. And then it will finish with the Rams and the Bears live at Soldier Field in Chicago, where temperatures are expected to be literally 0 degrees. So a lot of people love the divisional round of the NFL playoffs. A lot of people think it's the best weekend in all of the NFL calendar. So don't forget, you can hear a lot of the action here on our radio station. Nico Collins will not play for the Houston Texans. Of course, one of the best wide receivers in all of the NFL. The college football season will come to a close coming up on Monday, where Indiana and Miami will do battle for the national championship. You can hear that game on our station right after we say goodnight on Monday at 6 o'clock. Utah men's hoops in action coming up tomorrow, high noon at the Huntsman Center. The game is on TNT. It's against TCU. BYU beat TCU a couple nights ago down in Provo. TCU gave him a game, though. Gave him a good game. TCU's only losses this year are to really good basketball teams. The women are in action taking on Houston tomorrow. That game can be seen on ESPN+. The Utah Jazz have a night off tonight. They're going to take on the Dallas Mavericks coming up tomorrow. Yeah, back-to-back against the Mavs on the road. Kind of a new schedule wrinkle in the NBA that kind of started during COVID. The Utah Mammoth took care of the Dallas Stars last night 2-1. Really good win for them. Dallas is one of the best offensive teams in pro hockey, and only holding them to 1 goal, a good sign for the Mammoth. Feels like they've kind of figured some things out. Of course, it's been a heavy home portion of their schedule, and certainly time to make hay. The transfer portal came and went today. The transfer portal, I believe, is officially closed as of now. And no real news of note for Utah or BYU as far as losing any players or adding any players. Now, the unfortunate part, as we've discussed, I don't know what the up-to-date numbers are, but as of, I think it was Thursday when I had these numbers. And, you know, we had Yogi Roth on the show yesterday. He dropped a line that actually stopped me in my tracks, where a college coach told Yogi, a lot of these players don't realize they're entering the transfer portal, but they're actually retiring. So 10,576 players entered the transfer portal upon its opening. 10,576 players. As of Thursday, 6,846 players were still in the transfer portal. The estimation is between 1,200 and 1,300 players are not going to have a place to play football next year. Of course, a massive issue, one of several massive issues regarding the sport. And ultimately, you feel bad for a lot of these players that may have got some bad advice from people that are masquerading as agents, because you do not have to be a licensed agent to represent a college football player right now, which is another piece of chaos that all these coaches are ultimately having to traverse through. So definitely feel bad for a lot of these young men that may never play football again as a result of overplaying their hand. But now that we have the portal more or less behind us, we have a more accurate idea of exactly who Utah lost, who BYU lost, and we can kind of go through the exercise to try to analyze what the team will look at. Of course, the big piece of news that dropped for Utah football this week is that Devin Dampier is coming back to play quarterback for Kevin McGivern and Morgan Scalley and the University of Utah. All right, if you are not busy tomorrow, let me make a plea to go up to the Huntsman Center and support Utah basketball. Great crowd for the BYU game, and yes, a lot of those were BYU fans, which is fine. If you're mad about that, there's one solution. You can go buy tickets to go watch the game and then keep them out of the hands of the opposing team. So high noon tip, Utah, TCU. TCU a 12.5-point favorite, 12.5-point favorite to win that game. So we're going to preview the game before we say goodnight at 6 with Sean Mooney. Keep it here on ESPN 700. Here's some fun news before we say goodnight to get you ready for the NFL playoff weekend. The Broncos are elevating Caleb Lohner. I almost said Caleb Lomu. That would have made no sense because he's not been drafted yet. Caleb Lohner will be activated for Saturday's game against the Bills. Of course, a red zone threat if there ever was one. All of his catches here were for touchdowns. So exciting stuff. Of course, a lot of Utes both playing for the Broncos now and have played for the Broncos in the past. So pumped for the weekend ahead in the NFL. Just to review the picks, and for entertainment purposes only, please do not put money on this and then yell at me online. I'm taking the Bills on the road against the Broncos. Give me the Seahawks at home against the Niners, although I would lay the points because I think that's a pretty big spread. I am taking the Texans on the road against the Patriots, which is an unpopular pick. Our guy Sam Monson joined us earlier, disagreed with that. And I'm going to take the Rams to get it done, even though it's going to be 0 degrees with 35-mile-per-hour winds against the Chicago Bears. Porter, give me a hot take. I'm going Bills, Seahawks, Texans, Rams. Agree, disagree?
I don't necessarily disagree. I got a high confidence in the Rams getting that done. I give Denver a real shot against the Bills. And then, I think Seattle, especially without a bunch of pieces for the 49ers, are going to get it done. So the only one that I think I may differ with you on is the Broncos. Hey, maybe that's all the guys in the locker room that we're familiar with, but it's kind of the case in Buffalo too. That the amount of former Utes or local ties in the Broncos-Bills game is one of the most exciting parts for me of the weekend.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I love this weekend. I think, I hope we get a bunch of really, really good games. Don't forget, you can hear tomorrow night's Seattle-San Francisco game here on the radio station. And we will have you taken care of for Sunday's matchups. And then Monday night, Indiana and Miami do battle for all the marbles, the final game of the college football season. No Jazz basketball tonight. Not a lot of local stuff going on tonight for a Friday evening. In fact, zero. Nothing. No Jazz, no Mammoth, no college basketball. We did talk some NBA earlier with Dave McMenamin, who is still my friend. We've got some decent NBA action tonight. The Jazz will be back in action against the Mavs. Larry Markkinen will not play because, well, you know, Cooper Flagg won't play either. And then the Jazz will be against San Antonio on Monday of next week, and then they come home for a 5-game road trip. Or excuse me, a 5-game homestand. It's been the Mammoth's turn to be here at home, and then next week the script will be flipped, and the Utah Jazz will get an opportunity to play a bunch of home games. Transfer portal has come and gone. According to 247 Sports, Utah football added 12 transfers. And, of course, the outgoing transfers that we talked about. Jason Stokes has not announced his intent just yet. Neither has Drew Clemens. But everybody else, Devin Green and Brandon Zerbert haven't either. But everybody else has announced as far as where they're going. And 5 of them will land in Ann Arbor to play for Coach Witt. And according to 247 Sports, BYU football added 8 transfers. So Utah adding 12, BYU adding 8. And, in the coming days and weeks ahead, we'll try to analyze this stuff to try to kind of help you understand what sort of product we could see on the field coming up in fall. Kind of glad that the transfer portal's no longer open.
Yeah.
I mean, it's chaos every single day. I'm kind of glad it's done.
It is chaos. College football kind of just feels like chaos at this point. The calendar is the biggest issue there, right? Like, I feel like I could intake a little bit of the transfer portal a little better. I could cover it a little better when I'm not trying to watch the playoff. I'm not trying to cover coaching vacancies and changes, right? The fact that the calendar hasn't been cleaned up, I think, is an indictment on the leadership at the NCAA and in the power brokers in college football. I hope and think that they'll probably do something in that regard in the coming months and maybe coming years. But yeah, I'm with you. The transfer portal giveth, it taketh away. But covering it to me is one thing that I kind of just punt to our guys, Brandon Huffman, Matt Zenitz, and some of the local guys that cover recruiting, because, it's 18 to 20-year-olds who are, let's just say, not always very sure on what they're doing next. Not so certain. So just wait until the dust is settled, and then I'll look at the rosters then.
A couple of rankings for you for whatever it's worth. Now, 247 only ranks the actual commits. They do not weigh the players that you lost. And 247 has Utah at 44 and BYU at 48. However, if you go to On3, okay, another website that tracks this stuff, what they do is they weigh transfers in to transfers out. For some context, the number 1 class is going to be Indiana. Wow. Texas Tech 2. So Texas Tech out of the Big 12 coming in at 2. They have BYU all the way up at 14. 8 transfers in, 13 transfers out. But of the 13 transfers that BYU lost, none of them, I don't think, were going to make much of a difference this year. And bad news if you're a Utah fan, if you believe in these rankings, they have Utah with 10 transfers in. 247 has 12. But they have Utah losing 18 players, and the index score has Utah down at 67. But interestingly enough, at 68 is the University of Michigan. Huh. Odd. Well, none of this means anything. We'll see what it looks like come fall, and we're actually playing some football games. All right, do you have any plans to consume the NFL calendar coming up Saturday, Sunday? You're just going to melt into the couch?
Yeah. When it comes playoff time, man, I outside of Super Bowl Sunday, where I usually go to some sort of friend gathering of some sort. The playoffs for me, I like to sit down and watch the games in their entirety and really get a feel of what's going on in the field. And that's probably what I'll do. I will, and it's not sad for me to be sitting alone in my living room on a Sunday, at least in January, February. That's actually what I'm looking forward to this weekend.
How's your Robinhood profile these days?
Actually, really good. You want to?
Seriously?
I'm up like 40-something%. this year.
Are you lobbing some action out this weekend?
I don't know. I don't do the sports stuff as much. I'm watching the stocks.
Are you day trading, young man?
Oh yeah.
You got to be careful there.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
7:30 a.m. every morning.
All right.
I'm ready to go.
Man, you so badly want to get out of this business. I hope you're able to.
I didn't say that.
I have so many friends that were so pumped about their early day trading returns and then revisit like a year later. I'm like, you're still doing that? They're like, no, man. I had to. The worst thing that can happen, and this happened to me with blackjack. My first experience at a blackjack table, we were on our way to San Diego for spring break. We stopped in Vegas. And I'm like, I've never done this before. I sat down and turned $20 into like 200. And it changed my entire spring break at the age of 18. I had a fake ID. No big deal. Don't have it anymore.
Nice.
But at the age of 18, turning $20 into $200 when you're on the way to spring break, I'm like, why don't I do this all the time? The worst thing that can happen to you when you gamble is you win early on and you think you've got it, because then that's how it gets its hooks in you, and suddenly you realize the truth.
This is true, and that's kind of why I stay away from like true gambling. But then if you're trading like businesses and on the Fortune 500 and whatnot, you have to like really pay attention to world affairs and laws and the like. I do a pretty good job of that, and I will just see how long I can stick with it.
You also have sources in weather, strangely enough. Have you ever turned your weather knowledge in? Because you can do that on the prediction stuff.
Just to be clear, my sources in weather are birds, and farmers, and the Farmer's Almanac. So, although I think give some pretty accurate forecasts. It's not like I really want to know who's like doing the cloud seeding and stuff. Then I could get it, because the only weather, as I showed you, was like, will it snow more than half an inch in Salt Lake in December?
Right.
And I hit yes on all of that, and I lost. So I've actually only lost on that side.
Okay, fair enough.
Unfortunately.
Well, it happens. Be safe out there. Entertainment purposes only, but should be an excellent weekend in the world of the NFL. All right, Porter, before we get out of here, start our weekend out the right way. What comes our way in a Monday edition of the show?
On a Monday show, we'll recap the football weekend that was. Our guy Zach Moss, former Buffalo Bill, a near Miami Hurricane at one point. He'll recap and preview all of that. We'll chat with Sam Bruckhouse, one of our staples throughout the football season. The voice of the Utes, Bill Riley. And then you mentioned all the transfer portal stuff, hoping for Matt Zenitz to join us to recap all of that on a Monday.
Good stuff. So we will say goodnight for a Friday show. Special thank you to my best friend, Dave McMenamin, as well as Sam Monson, Sean Mooney, and Paul Pugmire. If you missed any of the sound from the show today, the website is ESPN700sports.com. Make sure to download our mobile app and take us on the go. That ESPN 700 app is available in the App Store and the Google Play Store. Then finally, for what we do in our space every afternoon for 4 hours, we have a podcast. And if you like what we do, we would appreciate if you would support us there by subscribing, rating, reviewing, saying nice things in the comments, and give us all the stars. It helps. We're up wherever you get your shows. It's called The Drive with Spence Checketts. He's Porter. I'm Spence saying goodnight, reminding you that you can always not tweet. Have a great weekend. Be good to yourself. Be good to each other. We'll talk to you on a Monday Drive. As always, you can find it right here on your home of the Utes, ESPN 700.